full house to debate the report of the committee on the suitability of the 7 individuals to serve on the electoral body. And the Teachers Service Commission CEO Nancy Macharia has begun a 1-month terminal leave in anticipation of her retirement on the 30th of June. In her absence, the Commission has appointed Evelyn Mitei as the acting CEO as the search for Macharia's permanent replacement begins. In an internal memo dated June 1st, Macharia expressed her gratitude to the Teachers Service Committee and for their support during her tenure. Her departure signifies the conclusion of a significant chapter in TSC's history, having served the Commission for 10 years and ushering in a new phase for the organization. And in the international scene, Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan is under fire after her government deregistered one of the country's biggest Pentecostal churches, Glory of Christ Church, Ufuo na Uzima, and its over 2,000 branches have been shut down. Its founder, Kawe MP and Bishop Josephat Gwajima, has been openly condemning enforced disappearances. The government says his summons are inciting the public against the state and threatening national stability. For months, Gwajima has used his altar as a political platform, decrying abductions and disappearances of government critics. He claims more than 80 people have either gone missing or been found dead, a dark record Tanzania hasn't seen in decades. That's the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Waliletea fujo Moi mpaka wakapata cooperation. Wakakuja wakasumbua Kibaki mpaka wakachukua nusu mkate. Wamekuja wakazungusha Uhuru hapo mpaka wakaenda na handshake, program yetu ikapotea, BBI ikaendelea, tukazama, tukaingia kwa madeni. Sasa mimi nimewaambia, hii serikali hii, mimi nawaambia hii serikali ni ya mahasla. Hakuna nusu mkate, hakuna handshake, hakuna hiyo borojo.
Jana nimeona wale wazee tulishinda. Ati hiyo mzee akisema ati he will not be coerced or intimidated to joining our government. Wewe mzee sikia. We have no business within our government. Hatuna haja na hatugojei wewe. We are not looking for you and we have no time. Stop saying that people can force you to come to this government. Forget about being forced or coerced. We are not interested because sisi tuko na kazi ya kufanya.
Kama kuna mtu ako na namba ya William Ruto, arekodi hii video mtumie. Maisha yangu tangu nizaliwe sijawahi kuona mtu muongo, mfisadi, baradhuli, dhabdhabina kama William Samoei Ruto.
Mimi Hassan Joho nikitaka kuongea, mimi I don't even dream of engaging with them. Ati huyu akitaka aje aongee sio na mimi niongee na Ruto nini? Mimi nikamtafute atanipa nini? Wilbaro.
I wonder.
Nilipeleka Wilbaro mimi la kimtaani la kucheza nalo zamani.
We have a choice to reject over 60% of these names or give President Ruto He's skunk. Apart from a few individuals who are not even more than 8, the rest are incompetent, unqualified, have integrity issues, are people who cannot deliver this country from where it is to the next level that we want the country to move in.
A few moments later.
Now forwarded the name of John Mbadi Ngongo to the Ministry of National Treasury and Economic Planning. The Honorable Hassan Ali Joho, Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
In this country, 6 families and 8,000 Kenyans control 90% of the GDP. We are not a country. We are a plantation. We work for Ruto.
When you're telling the judges court orders are papers or they will not obey court orders, they're sitting and you're seeking orders from them. So how are they supposed to interpret it? Isn't it an oxymoron?
When you see a judiciary that seems to be under some control somewhere, you start questioning. We have very powerful governors, but they don't use their offices to serve the people.
If you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you?
I'm human, everybody's human. So when you're told, kuja tuongee, I mean, you'd be a fool to say, staki kuongea today. Conversations have to be had, you know?
People in leadership should only go into leadership if they are ready and willing to change the lot of the people.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
It's 11 minutes
Nairobi.
after 6 o'clock, and this is the Situation Room on this 4th day of June 2025. Good morning, Mr. Aseto, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I am fine, how are you doing?
Salama sana, shukuru.
Where Iko Salama? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Why did you take your neck pieces though?
So you see, the thing is, this is about fashion, is that when you're wearing those kind of neck pieces, you need to do it with a round or a square neck. So if you have like a dipping collar, then you wear maybe a shorter thing. And it was too early in the morning to figure out which one I wanted to wear, so I just up and left.
All right.
Like that.
Okay.
Guess who's back? Back again. Tell your friends. Guess who's back?
Come on.
I'm singing now.
I was thinking of doing the Pink Panther intro.
Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good to be back. Better than you? Yes.
2 Dennises and 1 Ndu. Has it happened before? No, 2 Dennises and 1 Ndu in a room. It has not happened before. But here we are all the same. How are you doing?
I'm good.
You went and then came back.
Yes, I did. With the beginnings of something that resembles COVID, I think. I'm not so sure. I think everybody by this time has had it, so no worries.
Not sure. I've not tested and found myself positive, so no.
Me. I refuse to be sick. I'm rarely sick. I'm
Did you take the
hardly.
vaccine?
I took one, and then after that, I said, you know, what is this thing? And I'm not taking it. I didn't take the second one. I am rarely sick, but when I get sick,
it's proper.
It's bad.
So what takes you down? Flu?
Complete. Whatever the sickness, and everything grows where it's not supposed to grow. Things, the headaches, fevers from here till Timbuktu is terrible. So I try to avoid getting sick. So breathe over there.
Well, they say COVID never left. If it did, the conspiracy theory is the after effects of those who got the vaccinations.
Yeah, did you take the vaccinations?
Yes, I did.
Both?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you?
3.
You took 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I did 1 and I was done.
You're a young man. Why take 3?
Just because. You know, it's simply because I had a relative who actually died from COVID, so I was a bit on the edge. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's so many, stories around the complications after the vaccine. So
there was some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Things that happen to people.
How are you and your country?
Which one? My country, Nigeria. Nigeria. Okay.
Be careful.
Where I am being hosted
by choice.
It's a different story.
We're in a season of deportations. Be careful.
Where I just throw away the key. Did you people see what I saw yesterday? Of going to court, of attending court cases, and then being arrested in broad daylight, of pleas not being taken, of about 100 lawyers.
Yeah.
Went to defend Jerry in court. 100.
Yeah.
Went to lay claim and say, no, come on, guys, you're being ridiculous. Others said, you know what? The judge should have just looked and said, look here, stop wasting the court's time. There's nothing we're discussing here. Let this girl go and let's move on. But now we've delayed the thing again to the 20th of June. Yesterday was just an interesting day. Then Natembeya showed up in court and his people were arrested and not arrested.
You know, I was watching the news yesterday after coming back, and I don't know whether it's me. You get the feeling like you're running, like your heart palpitations, like you're stressed. You're watching 30 minutes of back-to-back
adrenaline
drama. By the time you're done, you're like, wow. Like,
and actually it's just 30 minutes,
and it's 30 minutes.
Yeah.
As in the morning, before lunchtime. Do you get this? We did
all this was happening before lunchtime.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did the show, we finished at 10 o'clock. By the time it was lunchtime, people had been arrested, Natembeya shouting, others talking, Peter Wamalwa in town saying that we're leaving. 100 lawyers found their way to court. People were granted bail, come back on the 20th before lunchtime.
Yeah.
And then people say, why are you so negative? Why are you It's on the buffet, man.
Yeah.
It's once you're being served up. What do you do? These are all things happening on a Tuesday before you even do anything.
Wow.
Interesting.
This is what we are doing, and this is where we are. Is there an echo? I feel like I'm underwater. I feel like I've been underwater for a couple of days and I haven't swum this week. But anyway, we move regardless, Abby. And let's tell you some of the conversations that we'll be having today. This is a Situation Room, and it's Kenya's biggest conversation. And it's 2 Dennises and an Ndu this morning. And I'm not going to get tired of saying that. So let's just go, right? Let's tell you what we'll be having conversations around today. And, very good morning, guys. Wishing you that, really, despite all of that, I really do believe that in all things, we can be grateful and we can actually give thanks that we're here and we have another opportunity to take a stab at it. So, let's go. Let's do it and let's go. We're going to start our conversations off at 7 a.m. with the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Public Service, Human Capital Development and Special Programs. Ndu Okoh will be talking about Reimagining NYS 60 years later. He's in this docket, brand new, and looking at how he's going to work on public service and such. NYS, there have been many questions around NYS, what they should be doing, how they should be operating, what they really can be used for. And I'm just looking at all of you guys who click into the room, and I remember there was somebody on the comments just a couple of days ago who said, you know what, there are things that we have in this country that NYS can actually do. And that they're not really being utilized to the full potential of what it could potentially serve. So we'll look into some of those this morning with CS Okoh as he joins us at 7 a.m. And then at 9 a.m., Bill Okari is a political economist. He was a shadow cabinet minister for finance at some point, and he's versed in issues tax, economy. And we're going to be looking at the 2025-2026 tax shakeup. What are the hits? What are the misses? And what are the hidden costs? We'll open that up in that conversation at 8. And then Dr. Davji Atela is the KMPDU Secretary General, is the Kenya Medical Practitioners Dentists Union. Doctors Union. We're going to be talking about UHC, behind the scrubs, who's really holding up Kenya's healthcare system. We looked at the story where for 6 weeks UHC workers are on strike, but then at the same time there are UHC ghost workers who are being paid 1.5 billion per month. I mean, it's crazy stuff, but it's actually happening right here in Kenya. I'm waiting for the credits to roll, but this looks like it's a telenovela, not even just one movie, right? So Dr. Atela is going to join us at 9 o'clock, and we'll be looking at these issues around UHC. It's important. It's a conversation that must be had, and we'll have it right here in the Situation Room. Before we say hello to you, because I know that you're all logging into, let's say hi to Lydiah. She's here somewhere. Hi, darling. Are you fine? Wave and smile. She's even looking fine. She is there and she's in one piece. Fantastic. As we do, guys, say hello to her. Give the lady some stars and flowers this morning, will you? Working things in the back end, and it's always great to have you there doing that for us. We will do today's proverb. I say Dennis, but not which Dennis. Which it's going to confuse me today, but it's okay. Dennis Ibrahim.
Hey, what?
Oh, your other name is Ibrahim?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I say Aseto. Which one should we use for today's purpose?
Which one are you comfortable with?
Aseto. D-O is both of D-A-D-O.
Yeah.
Okay, D-O-D-A-N-O. Any D-A.
No and do.
No do. Yeah.
Do. No do. No do.
Yeah.
So, there's many things we can do here.
Yeah.
We are in Eswatini. Help us with today's proverb, will you?
The country within South Africa?
Yes, the
surrounded by South Africa.
One of them.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Dennis.
Yes.
What do you like about Eswatini?
I was actually close to the place just the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to interact with one or two people from that place. And there were some very interesting stories I was hearing. One to do with I didn't know that the former king had 145 wives.
Yes, so it's not a small wahala.
Yeah.
The current one has what? It's 15, 16 thereabouts.
Yeah, he's not yet there, but
he's not yet there, but he's working his way. You know, it's an annual thing.
But a very beautiful country.
Yeah, very beautiful country.
Yes,
I agree.
yes.
So the proverb today: a man shows his character by what he laughs at. A man shows his character by what he laughs at.
What? Did you say laugh or love?
Laugh. Laughs at.
Repeat that again.
A man shows his character by what he laughs at.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just remember yesterday when we were, or even the day before, and I looked on socials when Bonnie gave his rendition of what happened to him when he was away for those 4 days, and there were, when he talked about the horror that he went through, there were some people who were laughing at that, and I said, let's imagine that in the wildest place, let's imagine if we can even have the audacity to imagine that it was a lie, or that it didn't happen, and that it's just a picture that you've conjured up in your mind. Even that in its picture is not funny for something to happen to somebody else. So if you laugh or make jest at something like that, then one must wonder, who are you?
Who hurt you? Who raised you?
What kind of character do you have? If you can laugh at somebody or make jest of something that is a harrowing experience, then somebody's got to question your character. In the same vein, if something happens to you that's terrible, that would be so heavy, and that you can laugh at it, that you can lighten it, then also shows your character as well, in terms of resilience, and say, this will not break me. I can see it in both those ways.
I think I can relate. To me, laughter, joy comes from the inner man, like your spirit. And so laughter reveals what's in your spirit.
True.
So you'll find the most joyful people, the people who laugh depending on what they laugh at, reflects on what they carry inside.
Yeah.
So your character is revealed through laughter. So if you find, like what you're saying, Ndu, what Bonnie was talking about, and somebody finds that funny or laughs at that, it shows the dark parts of humanity.
Exactly.
It just goes to show that there's a lot of darkness in our souls. If you find something that is as brutal as that to be funny in any shape or form, so
yeah, exactly.
That's my interpretation of it. Yeah. You know, like dark humor. There are people who
thrive
in that. On just dark humor. They don't find anything that's very generic as funny, but they find very odd
things as funny.
Yeah, it just reveals their character, and those people are very dangerous.
Yeah, because even I think when you talk about what they laugh at, it's I take it further to what kind of discussions as well surround whatever situation there is, because still on the same yesterday when we talked about Boni, and there, I passed across a few individuals who are having a discussion around it, saying, this is just a script. It is a civil society thing that they're doing. So for me, that is a laughter, not necessarily. Then
people think it's a joke until it
happens to them.
Yeah, exactly.
I was arrested in Uganda.
Yeah, you told me this.
I told you.
Yeah.
So I'm like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I took a video of the president's motorcade.
Yeah.
And I was just near my hotel, which was next to Uganda State House. And I asked my driver. I mean, in Kenya, we do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you stand by the road, you're fascinated by the motorcade. I was like, let me see M7's motorcade. And I asked, is it okay if I take a picture, just film? It's just for my personal use. And he's like, yeah, it's okay. And lo and behold, I was 2 minutes into filming. M7 passed. 3 presidential guards were behind me. 2 soldiers were in front of me. And they were all grabbing my phone. I was screaming. And what was even interesting is when the people were passing by, the border guys realized I'm Kenyan, it became even more brutal. It was like mob justice. I was arrested and was taken to custody. And I was told, why were you filming the president? Who are you? I just gave them my first name. And I was like, I asked, it's okay. I was just fascinated by this. In Kenya, you do this. Oh, so you do that in Kenya? I was like, people sometimes even abuse the president. But in Uganda, you can't do
that.
And I was so scared because they took my passport. They wanted to take my phone. I refused. To cut a long story short, I managed to get my way out of the place because my driver organized and some dollars changed hands. That's how I was released. But the thought of they threatened, I was going to go to court. So I was taken to this it was this structure that looked like a police station. And there were 3 of them in there, and nobody outside could tell there's somebody who was inside. So when you're in a foreign country, that happens to you.
Not funny.
Not funny.
Well, those are some of the things, and I guess that would be interesting to see what folks would interpret that with today. But yeah, tells a lot about you by what you do, isn't it? Folks are tuned in this morning. Our live streams are up YouTube, Facebook, and on X, and we'll be joined by our audience on KTN as we get through it today. Let's say hello to you. Tell us where you're tuned in from this morning, stepping into the situation room. Michael Hollande says bonjour et heureux de vous aujourd'hui ce matin. Salutations de mille collines. So he's basically said good morning everybody, good morning people rather. Very happy to join you here this morning. Greetings from de Mille Collines, is the land of 1,000 hills. He's obviously in Kigali. The script is so similar that all government advisors do an about turn after joining government. This is Don Sabwa. Good morning to you. Ndu Dennis and Dennis. Desmond Otis says good morning. Raimtula Omar is tuning from Colchester and says, we demand the international community to sanction President Suluhu. Okay. Agola says, bonjour too. Good morning to you, Agola. Good morning, sister. Rose Grace is tuned in from Tamu. Where have you been, Grace? You've been away, but it's good to have you back. Continue what you do. Thank you for always joining us every morning. Good morning, Team Spice. Mkoje says Bwangi Juma and Tuko Salama. Hisa Daniel is tuned in, as well as Erica Ward. Good morning, lovely one, says King Dave. King Dave, good morning to you. Guten Morgen, team. Looking forward to great conversations. Kamakawa, thank you so much. Wenzel, good morning. And Gore is tuned in and says it's a chilly morning in Nairobi. Yes, it is actually. Leo says, hello, Princess Ndu. Good morning. It's Dennis and Lydiah. Rutoism is the best policy. Okay, what's that? You make policy which you expect to be law in and amend acts of parliament as you go. Cry, my beloved motherland. Oi, oi. Sarah Kilonzo is tuned in this morning, says we should go by Sifuna's statement and ask the Tanzanian government to come for their people. Hawezi fanyia boni hivyo naishe tu hivyo. Edwin Sifuna said very clearly yesterday, he said no. In fact, I want to just pull up his tweet, what he said. And there was no emotion, no romanticism here. It was basically I just need to do it because I feel it has a little bit more punch when we do. He said, first, ban the entire CCM leadership from visiting our country. Second, withdraw from joint hosting of CAF with the dictatorships in Uganda and Tanzania. Thirdly, move the EALS annual conference from Zanzibar. You know EALS is the East Africa Legislative Summit. Move that from Zanzibar. And finally, withdraw that fake apology and demand that Tanzania apologize to us instead. That's what he said yesterday. So in case you're wondering what Sifuna said, that is what Edwin Sifuna said. Many standing behind that statement. Ongani Malala says, good morning, Team Spice. Your good work makes us stay tuned in. Samia Sulu is intolerant. Ongani Malala, thank you for being loyal, for being in the room every morning. Felix Shihemi says, good morning into an all situation room crew. Salamia Lydiah. Okay, Lydiah, I've greeted you. The question is the police rebranding into mafia police? Many got asking this question. My goodness. One worth asking. Mashari and Jerry is tuned in this morning. Team Spice watching from Portland in Oregon. Looking forward to an informative conversation. Young Jedi says, good morning, Spice. Good morning, guys. Baridi leo imekuja na watoto wake. Is it that cold outside?
It's very cold.
It is cold.
Okay, maybe I was just here too early. No? Okay. Well, maybe I just don't feel cold. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know. Well, let's see.
Do you eat in the morning?
Well, not heavy. I take a cold shower in the morning.
Explains it.
What?
Yeah. It's actually the best thing for you to do. You take a hot bath or hot shower at night to open up your pores and clean out, and then you take a cold shower in the morning
to warm your body up.
That's what I do. So maybe that's why I don't feel cold right now. I don't know, but it's always been that way. Mtuflani says, Wagwan Spice people, have a blessed day, y'all. Kabathe says, good morning. We appreciate the very good and candid conversations from you. Kabathe, good morning. I've seen that name for the first time today. I'm going to say shout out and Karibu Sana. Bernardito says, good morning, everybody. The oppressors in the region use the same manual. They are now closing church and the only voice against abduction in TZ. I'm telling you, the things that are happening, you guys, it's like a movie. Somebody would be able to get some major credits if they just rolled the camera. Dominic Rotich says, good morning, Spice. Watching from Cabernet. Tavares Augusto says, bon dia, good morning to you as well. Good day. Zach, we see you tuning from Michigan. Nelson Mungai says, good morning, team. We are listening from Petersburg in the UK. Well, thank you so much. Peter Wajala is tuned in from Tudor in Mombasa. I'm going to go through this really quickly. Congrats, Dennis, on your new assignment. Dennis, you've been congratulated on your new assignment. The world knows.
God, thank you.
Rosalind Nekesa says, where? Dennis Okari, long time. Good to see you, my friend. Rosalind is your friend. Nekesa. Rosalind Nekesa.
Doesn't sound familiar, but
you'll remember. Don't worry.
Memory.
Young Jedi, I see what you've said. Faith Sanda says good morning, but nisawa tu naendelea. Cindy, my sister. Vera Joshua says good morning, tuned in. Agola says, can you imagine being represented in court by a whole retired CJ plus a former VP? Eish. Wow. I tell you, it was crazy. Hesbon Sidon is tuned in this morning. Rogers Lai says, good morning, salam alaikum, Mombasani, Tuko spiced already. Eric Kalindi is tuned in. My prince, good morning. Police should stop abusing our justice system, period. Moses Situkai says, good morning, tuning from West Poland. In other words, West Pokot. Wilfred Odhiambo, we see you. Precious Condi is tuned in this morning. Greeting everybody. My take, good morning. Oh, you said hello. Wow, I think we need to stop and clap. My take has said
hello.
Has even said good morning. Yeah. This is fantastic. We see you. Pam Media says hello, good morning. Carol Nyambura tunaanda tupenda sana. Tunakupenda pia. Charles Ndieka is tuned in. Mama J says good morning. You forget this is the same Kenyans who laughed when an MP was killed. The apathy is real. My sister, it is. Kenneth Jamba says good morning, Situation Room crew. Dan Still Langat is tuned in. Rogers Olorch says 16 billion shillings just flew out of NSSF. Where? Telling you. Good morning, King Simon Kibiru. Good morning, tuned in from Roiro. Have a fruitful day. Thank you so much. Nashan is tuned in. Eliud Lulani is tuned in as well. Lunguchi is here as well. Zakodio says good morning. I love the convo with the contractor yesterday. I know Simon Kishoki did some good stuff. Inspiring Music is also tuned in. And Lamek Otieno says another day to remember that we are alone. Oi. Elizabeth Mbodi says good morning. I love you all. We love you too. Getting into it this morning, thank you so much for joining us as we do, guys. Karibu. You keep coming in. We're welcoming you one by one. Karibu sana. Okay. We're inching closer towards 7, but let's look at the headlines quick and then we'll look into details of these stories, shall we? On the front page of Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, state impunity. That is the headline today. If you're looking into the papers, what does it say? Rose Njeri, a software developer and civic activist, thought she was using her skills to educate Kenyans on the finance bill and have them register their dissent. In return, a law that targets hackers is being used to prosecute her. Her arrest and arraignment has lawyers and critics up in arms, accusing the state of weaponizing cybercrime laws to silence digital activism and public participation. All eyes are on the judiciary on June 20th to see where hacking starts and dissent stops. Nancy Macharia leaves TSC after 10 years at the helm and has gone on terminal leave, and her tenure comes to an end the 30th of June, but she said goodbye to the TSC yesterday. Party launch programs for Gachagua. Sorry, please. This man has not launched his party already?
Well,
didn't he launch it that day when there was fracas? Or they said because there was fracas, so it was not launched?
But you know, the law says for you to be able to have, say, a presidential candidate, you need to have footprints across all the 47 counties. So it is 47.
To launch in every county. Serious.
But you know, the first meeting it did was just announcing we have a new party.
So it was not launching.
So it was introducing the officials, the executive within the party. Then the launch is where you bring together
everybody,
like Dennis said, people from Turkana, from Met, from Kisii, Nyandarua. So you sort of give the party a nationalistic
face of Kenya.
Yes. So delegates from this region.
Yes.
And it's also a show of power.
Yeah.
We know what this is about.
But do you know they have okay, we'll read the story, but they have refused. They said that you will not launch it in Kasarani.
But are we surprised?
Of course not.
Yeah. Is he surprised?
Is he? Well, in fact, we should be shocked that he's shocked, as he normally says.
Yeah.
Aseto, tell us what's happening in the nation.
So let's go to the Daily Nation, and that is unmasked faces in home buying scams. Kenyans in diaspora in particular are being lured into property investments back home, only to later discover they sunk millions into bogus schemes. More depressing is the plight of retiring workers who believed they were investing in posh retirement homes, only to find stored structures in thickets. So it is no longer a story of nimechezwa na familia, but farms as well. Raila takes on Ruto over brutal state crackdown. The ODM leader has differed with the president on several issues, including compensation for victims on protest. That was Raila's statement during Madaraka Day celebrations in Homa Bay County. And the injury story as well is there. Anti-finance bill activist freed after weekend in police custody. And MPs clash over extra 60 billion shillings for counties. Senators and members of National Assembly are once again headed for mediation after disagreeing on an additional 60 billion shillings for the counties. While funds will build schools and markets, the government is proposing changes to the regulations to divert cash towards construction of schools and markets, police posts and hospitals. All that in page 8, including end of an era at TSC. Dennis, we look at Business Daily.
I'm just looking at it very quickly. Some interesting stories in the Business Daily. On the front page, there's a story of equity lobbies DRC against for sale of 30% stake. But at the bottom, how French threats forced Kenya to pay 6.2 billion for failed road. So there's a story about how Kenya was forced to pay that money without MP's approval to French contractors whose mega highway expansion project deal was cancelled. So the payment was made to avert legal suits after the consortium protested, handing the deal to Chinese contractors. The story is, it's like page 2 of the Business Daily. It's a whole page. You read all these figures and the numbers, your head will hurt. But let's go to another story that I also find interesting. And this one is about the new tax on motor vehicles. So more than 14 motor vehicle models are missing from the new price list that Kenya Revenue Authority, KERE, will use to calculate taxes on used imports from July 1st. So 14 models missing. So that story is on page 4. So the 145% increase in duty to be imposed on the 1.2 liter Suzuki Swift and all these other models. So they're saying kuna models zingine haziko hapa.
Okay.
Yes.
In case you buy them, it's abracadabra.
Yes. So it's, you're not too sure if I'm buying this, will I be slapped with this new tax?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then another sad story to a certain group of people. Treasury proposals paving way for increase in Senator keg prices. So the East African Breweries Limited will be free to raise the retail price of its low-end beer. And kuna watu wataumia hapo. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So we take a break real quick and then let's come back and look at the meat of these stories, shall we? This is the Situation Room. Ndu and two Dennis's this morning. We'll continue after this. Don't go away.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This May, the stage is set, the mic is on, and the search begins.
Welcome to Next Superstar.
From raw vocals to big talent, the search is on for Africa's next hit maker. Next Superstar is here. Premiering May 3rd at 8 p.m. exclusively on Remo TV Plus, StarTimes Channel 56 or Channel 166. Buy a DTT StarTimes decoder for only 1,399 bob or a DTH for 3,199 shillings to enjoy unlimited entertainment. Join judges Size 8, King Kaka, Motive, and hosted by Maina and Butita on Next Superstar. Renew your subscription on DTH Smart Bouquet at 1,199 shillings only or DTT Basic Bouquet at 749 shillings only. You can dial *858# for self-service or call our customer care on 0730-710077. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Save money on your rising electricity bill with StarTimes Solar Home Solution. We offer a complete home and commercial energy saving system that includes solar panels with 15-year warranty, lithium battery with 10 years warranty, and an inverter with 5 years warranty. StarTimes Solar Home Solution is efficient, reliable, and safe to power essential appliances, complete home lighting, refrigerators, air conditioners, washing machines, microwaves, iron box, instant shower, and entertainment devices, television, computers, Wi-Fi, and so much more. Say yes to reduced electricity bills and call us today on 0719-077-777 and get started on your green energy journey today. StarTimes Solar. Power your life.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
19 minutes to 7 o'clock and still looking into some of these stories. Okay, so the one that grabbed the headies yesterday, state impunity. So you ask yourself, Rose and Jerry, what did she do? Well, she's a software developer, so she is versed in the IT world, obviously. So she decided to put up a website which essentially was going to explain or break down the elements of the finance bill. And as she did that, she was actually giving folks an opportunity to say yes to it or no to it on this website. Right? So she shared information that it's actually a government's job to do civic education. Mm-hmm. It's the necessity. And she also, I see this as a kind of like a 2-in-1 kind of thing, shampoo and conditioner. She told you what the finance bill was about, and then at the same time, she did public participation for you. As you could just go to the site and you could talk about what you would be happy with or not. That's what she did. Now, when the state arrests you, this is something that they say that you have committed in terms of a crime against the state. It's not just, Ndu stole Dennis's phone. No, it's beyond that, right?
Yeah.
Which carries with it a lot of weight, because essentially the charge against her was one of cybercrime, and they wanted to use this essentially to silence voices of dissent, is what we were told. Now, what is interesting is that the whole legal fraternity and their cousins came out and said, this is absolutely ridiculous. It started with the president of the LSK a few nights before that saying, you know what, we're going to be here until they let her go. And it's just, again, in how we've seen the LSK take on a different form in the last year under the presidency of Faith Odhiambo, and said we're not going to allow things like this to continue to happen and let the state use, their might to essentially harm people. So there's a Cybercrimes Act, in case you're wondering, okay? And the state has said that they wanted to pin her down using provisions of the Cybercrime Act. She did not take a plea. And I remember senior counsel Kalonzo Musyoka said, what are we taking plea for? You want us to say guilty or not guilty over something that doesn't even exist. So first of all, legally, we are plea what? It's not going to happen. Her legal team, which was crazy, by the way, came up against the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and they raised fresh questions over whether the state is weaponizing the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act to stifle civic participation and digital activism. The case, which has ignited a national conversation about the intersection of law, technology and democracy, saw high-profile legal minds and civil society come together in a courtroom showdown that may set a precedent for years to come. Jerry was arraigned at the Milimani Law Courts after spending more than 90 hours in police custody. I believe the law is 24 hours.
24 hours.
The law says 24 hours. You present them to court or you let them go. She faces one count: unauthorized interference with a computer system, contrary to Section 16 of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. According to the charge sheet, Jerry is accused of creating and deploying a web-based program that allowed members of the public to send emails to the National Assembly's Finance Committee expressing opinions on the controversial Finance Bill 2025. The DPP alleges that the mass email disrupted the normal functioning of the committee's system. That's where their problem was. And they said, because of this, you've committed a crime, taking you to court. Let's see if you're going to, whatever. David Maraga, Chief Justice Emeritus, said the charges brought against Ms. Njeri lack specificity, are poorly drafted, and failed to establish any real criminal intent. So based on that, take plea, not going to happen. Not on my watch, they said. She was eventually posted for 300, I think it was 300,000, I'd be 100,000. And then the case comes for mention on the 20th of June. Nelson Harvey also commented, and he said, you know what, it would have been easier for these people to just say, you know what, there's no case here, you guys, and there's nothing that you can prove. Let's go home instead of wasting the court's time and resources, instead of this hullabaloo that we saw taking place. And this lady said, after this was all said and done, I'm not gonna stop. This is my right. I can do this. And so that's what we're saying. Are we weaponizing this act, this Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act? Did you know that it existed and what you can or cannot do? So she'll be back in court on the 20th of June, no doubt with 100 and maybe 5 times these lawyers that were there.
Looking at this story, there's a stage being set here.
Yeah.
The target is not Rose. Watching Vioja Mahakamani growing up, the judge used to make a statement after sentencing someone, and she used to say this in Swahili: na kufunga ili iwe funzo kwa wengine. So what I see in this story is Rose is just one of the many, and this is not the first and the last of the many that will be used to set the stage for something that is working behind the scenes. In the grand scheme of things, what you're looking at here is not, there's no case here. That's clear. There's no, you don't need to be a lawyer to know there's no case here. However, a little here, a little there. What is going on is you're setting the stage to give reason ahead of 2027, that's my suspicion, to say, look, enough of this misuse of social media, this is what we're going to do. So for you to make that decision, you have to have a foundation. The foundation is give a narrative. We saw the last year's finance bill, what happened, and how social media was used. Now we are seeing this as another sign of what's to come. Then use other examples here and there. And you know how I know that? You know, politicians don't know how to hide their feelings and their plans. They will just utter these things. There's this constant narrative of shutting down
social media, and there are these conversations, not just politicians. And this tells you the thinking behind this arrest. And in my opinion, I actually went to that website. I'm actually there right now on this website that Rose actually came up with. It's a very simple one-page, it's just one landing page that has something very simple. Objection to the Finance Bill 2025, National Assembly Bills number 19 of 2025. Now, she has 4 things there. One is choose the recipient. So you want to send this to the clerk of the National Assembly or the Finance Committee. You just tick the box. The second part is edit the subject line. So you customize the email to the subject that you like. She's given you a template there. Then the third thing is customizing your email. Now, if you look at the contents of what she's actually written in terms of what she's rejecting, she's actually quoting what is in the Finance Bill, and she's also giving reason why this thing is going to hurt Kenyans. Then at the end is send your email. Now, how difficult is that to understand that what she's doing is just civic education? She's actually simplified this and say, hey guys, look, these are the areas I think are contentious. Simple. Now, read for yourself. And if you feel that there's something in here, then send that email. And you see, even in the current budget making process that is ongoing, Kenyans are supposed to give their views. There has never been a clear way how Kenyans can fully participate in the budget making process. What Njeri has done is make it easy for the republic, for the state, for Kenyans to participate as enshrined in the constitution. And if you look at what they say here is the program that allowed members of the public to send emails to the National Assembly's Finance Committee expressing opinions on the controversial finance bill. At the end of the day, those emails are public. Each and every single Kenyan who can send an email will send an email. What's the problem with Kenyan sending an email if your website is not up to par to meet the numbers of emails that are coming up? Fix it.
Do you know what scares people? Do you know what scares anybody? It's the public awareness that you haven't done what you're supposed to do and that you don't know how. And it's scarier than anything that the eyes of the public can actually be on me when I should have done something and I didn't do it. And then somebody else, in the utmost simplicity, is showing you how to do your job. The only thing you can do in that fear is attack. It's a wounded animal that attacks. It's a threatened animal that attacks. And that's exactly what we see happening here.
You know, for so many years in this country, we now are living in a generation where there's information overload. So politicians have always, forever thrived on people's ignorance. So now suddenly, you have people popping up from everywhere. You're not just talking about Gen Z. I didn't know who Rose Njeri was.
You didn't.
Now the whole country knows who she is. She looks like just a simple woman, very well educated, very smart, very sharp, and she was just using her skills to educate people. Now, when you see the powerful afraid of people like Rose Njeri, it tells you there's something people are doing right.
Exactly.
There's something people are doing right.
And you see, you've brought in something that is very critical, that the target here is not Njeri. There is a narrative that is being created, because we've had politicians say how we need to control the social media, what is being said. At some point, wanasema watanyonga, watanyonga mtandao, but look at what last year Gen Z protest did. Look at conversations that followed on X Spaces. Look at Njeri now coming up. We are getting into another finance bill that will end up in Parliament, and all these is meant to make people be afraid in having these conversations as they did last year.
My question is simple. What are you hiding? What are you hiding that then we have this fracas because somebody explained what is in public paper. So if there's something that you do not want Kenyans to know about, that is what is making you so nervous. Because this nonsense that we saw happening yesterday, where you have to bring in everybody into a court of law against this woman because of what she did, which is what you are supposed to be doing actually, there's something you're hiding and you don't want Kenyans to know. So one must ask, what is it? Double click on that and you have to ask yourself, when you see this much activity over something like this, what are you hiding? Why don't you want Kenyans to know what's in this supposedly public arena?
Well, inside the state plan to use housing levy cash to construct schools and markets. Yes. Right?
Our motherland.
Days after President William Ruto announced plans for changes to the affordable housing levy law, it has emerged that the government seeks to alter the regulations to allow for diversion of the funds to finance construction of schools, markets, police posts and hospitals. In his Madaraka Day speech, Dr. Ruto said part of the proposed reforms will seek to allow contributors to access affordable home loans. Now, and I quote, "I am pleased to announce today that we shall be proposing to Parliament a reform to the law that will allow any contributors to access an affordable home loan of up to 5 million shillings at a single-digit interest rate applicable towards any housing unit in the market. But in the draft regulations currently with the Attorney General, Dorcas Oduor, the government seeks to cap the loan at 4 million shillings. That's against what the president said in Homa Bay County. Now, for individuals with monthly income of less than 20,000, the fund will charge them an interest rate of 3% per year on reducing balance, while for those with a monthly income that does not exceed 149,000, an interest rate of 6% per annum will apply. Those earning more than 149,000 will pay an interest rate of 9%. Pretty much what the president's saying is there has to come a regulation that will see the housing levy go into building markets and schools because we need the money.
Sorry.
You know, I think we run, sometimes I feel we run this country like on a Word document.
Delete, like underline, italicize.
You change your mind.
Yeah.
You backspace, delete. You add another one, color.
Bold, underline.
We talk about figures, no formulas, nothing.
Sorry, but I have a simple question, and maybe it's me. I told you guys it's like I'm in a bubble. Maybe I don't understand, right? Housing levy, the money that's been deducted from people, 2.75%, whatever. It is supposed to go towards building
houses,
affordable housing, isn't it? It's not connected.
It's housing levy, yes.
Yes, it's housing, but you know, the other argument also, around a house, you also want a market where you can go buy skuma wiki. You also need a police station.
But these people who are county bosses, they're here shouting and telling us how the money that they get goes towards building these markets.
Yes.
Nairobi tells us about markets all the time. Kiambu tells us about markets all the time. Machakos, markets. See, that's what the counties are doing. So this housing levy, is it that the money is too much? They said they're going to do 250,000 units a year from this money that Kenyans pay at 2.5% that goes into this fund. At some point, they said the money was just sitting there, and what they actually did with it is that they put it into T-bills. Remember?
Yeah.
So why can't they just build the houses there? Why do you want to build markets and schools? I'm actually confused. I want somebody to explain it to me. No? Okay.
Let's go back to the Word document.
Word document, man. It's the Word document. Because, you see, whatever is in the law is these funds will be deducted towards construction of affordable housing for Kenyans. Now, they want to change that to include schools, markets,
affordable
and
markets
whatnot.
for Kenyans.
Yeah, and even healthcare facilities, which begs the question then, what is the purpose of counties and the national government in building these houses with the budgets that they have?
No, stop it. PS for health services right now is Dr. Oluga. When he was in Nairobi under the NMS,
yes.
They built 24 hospitals for under 1 billion shillings. Well under. It was 800 and something million.
Yes.
24 plug and play health facilities. So this kind of money that's coming in, that you now want to say you want to build markets, you want to build health facilities, which ones are you building for which kind of money? And plug and play facilities that you had and they were level 2s.
Yeah.
That you had the basic thing that was put up. All you needed to do was essentially plug in. You need an X-ray machine, plug. You need tables and chairs and whatnot, put, because it was ready to go. So we know that it can be done because it was done.
Yeah.
It was done in our lifetime for us to see they exist in Nairobi. So when you tell us that this money is going to you people should just stop. Just stop it.
Now
I don't understand.
Now you know why when such things appear in Jerry's website, she'll be shut down, no?
Come on, man.
Yeah.
You know, the contributors were assured, and everybody who's getting those deductions, you were told the reason we are deducting this amount from your salary is this is going into housing. So now you have this brilliant idea. Fantastic. Now, with this idea, you have to follow certain rules. One is you need to have public participation. So then, this money you're deducting, you want to divide it into 3. So have you even asked me, or have you even considered asking people, what do you think we need to do?
Yeah.
This is a case where it almost feels like someone sits one day, thinks, let's go east. Tomorrow they change their mind. No, I think let's go northeast. Then suddenly let's go south.
South.
Let's go west.
Yes.
It's impossible to follow through one single thing consistently without any form of changes. Do you realize, like I said, this is not shocking. This is so deliberate. Look at all the institutions, critical institutions in this country. Tell me one, whose conversation from the very start has been consistent the last, 3 years?
3 years.
None. From the health sector to education to this, nothing. Which leads me to this question. Is someone deliberately throwing confusion into the space so that we constantly wake up in the morning
and are like this?
Yeah. You're running this direction, then suddenly it changes. You're running this direction, so you can't even keep up with where are we. So if somebody was to ask somebody today in Kenya, so where are we?
You can't answer.
In any conversation, you can't honestly answer.
You see, we talk about markets, and governors say construction of markets is work of the counties. We talk about building of classrooms. There's a budget allocation that is always in the budget towards this. What happens to these plans? Why aren't we just following up on the plans that we've had all along?
Where? Me. I'm tired. These are some of the stories making the headlines this morning, and that is what sets the pace for the country today. That's what's going on, and this is what we do in the Situation Room. We'll continue with conversations. The Honourable Geoffrey Roko, CS for Public Service, will be in the hot seat at 7. Good morning, 7 a.m.
Morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Uwaga. For the first time ever, Kenya has managed to accumulate reserves of $10.3 billion. President William Ruto says that the reserves indicate the continued growth of the national economy. In economic terms, the reserves refer to assets controlled by the central bank and also include money in circulation in various banks in the country. These financial reserves are used to facilitate payments and transactions within the economy, as well as to maintain financial stability and control the value of the Kenyan shilling against foreign currencies. Ruto has attributed the large amount of dollar reserves to joint efforts based on the advice of economic experts in the country.
For the first time ever in the Republic of Kenya, we have reserves of $10.3 billion. It doesn't come easy. It again, for the first time for over a year, our exchange rate is stable. and our inflation has been managed.
Ruto has also commended Kenyans and especially farmers and manufacturers for strengthening their activities and improving the national economy.
I must commend the many people who have made this to happen. The farmers have really gone out of their way because the biggest contributor to inflation is the cost of food. And the fact that our farmers have gone out of their way, and I speak as a farmer myself, they've gone out of their way to produce food for the nation. And it has helped significantly reduce inflation.
It should be noted that President Ruto has repeatedly stressed that the country is on the right economic path and has even assured Kenyans that the economic challenges facing the country will be resolved. Economic data in the East African region shows that Kenya continues to put in place efforts to become the largest economy this year in order to overtake Ethiopia. While this financial year, Ethiopia is estimated to have a gross domestic product of $117 billion, while Kenya is targeting $132 billion. Council of Governors Chairperson Mudomi Njuki has explained that governors declined a proposal by the Ministry of Health to transfer the management of healthcare staff payroll to counties, citing that they would only accept the plan once the requisite funds are provided. Speaking during a local TV interview, Njuki highlighted that the scheme was part of the government's efforts to resolve the long-standing grievances relating to the healthcare workers. He noted that while the plan is feasible, since health is a devolved function, the governors insisted that the national government must provide the necessary funds before they can agree to the proposal.
On the issue of absorption of permanent to pensionable,
yes,
which the ministry is not committing at the moment, we do not want that problem to transfer to us without being addressed. Yes, there's need for us to have the supervising body being the one to pay the salaries or the remunerations, but we would like that to happen if the resources and the terms have already been rectified. Why does the ministry wants to transfer the problem to the counties when these workers are already on strike? Yet we've been sitting with them for the last 5 years.
However, Principal Secretary of Medical Services Oma Oluga reiterated the government's commitment to resolving the issues surrounding the staff to provide quality healthcare services across the world.
Myself and the Cabinet Secretary, we are just a month old and we cannot break the law. Resources must follow function. That is the constitutional mandate. So the fact that it hasn't been done before doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. I think that is not really to absolve ourselves from this responsibility, because even the transfer of that resources will be based on either additional revenue, which goes, I think Governor is aware of that process, so it will still be in the budget of the Ministry of Health.
The remarks come as UHC workers continue to stage daily protests demanding that their contracts be confirmed as permanent and pensionable. That's the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A very good morning to you at 7 minutes after 7 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, and we get into the second hour of things today. Welcome to our audience on KTN, and we continue with our live streams on YouTube, Facebook, and on X. And those who are listening around terrestrial radio in Kenya and watching on TV around the region and indeed the world, good morning. This is The Situation Room. Ndu, Dennis, and Dennis with you this morning. And as we get into conversations, today, the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Public Service, Human Capital Development and Special Programs is Jeffrey Roku, and he is in the hot seat this morning. He stands at 6 feet 6 inches, if I got that right. Am I right?
Yes, you're right.
Thank you very much. And he's in the hot seat this morning. CS, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm quite okay.
Last time you were in the seat, you were Member of Parliament. Now you're Cabinet Secretary. Of course, we're going to be looking into some of those things, but more than that today, we're going to reimagine the National Youth Service 60 years later and look at the work that they've been doing and what they can do. You've come into a time where that's being reimagined. So welcome to the Situation Room as we look into some of those issues. Let's welcome you properly. Dennis Aseto is going to tell you about a country called Eswatini. And he'll give you the proverb, and we'd like to know what your interpretation of that is.
Yeah. Okay. So we are in Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. And just fun fact about Swaziland is there is the Umhlanga dance, or the reed dance, which is one of Africa's most famous dance, and it's a period upon which young Swazi women get into dance and show of chastity when they get to meet the king. And our proverb today from Eswatini is a man shows his character by what he laughs at. A man shows his character by what he laughs at. What do you make of that?
I think, proverbs are supposed to have a deeper meaning. Mm-hmm. But it seems that that is as it is. Mm-hmm. A man shows his character by
what he loves.
Mm. Yes, it's, I guess it's as simple as that. I mean, it doesn't sound a proverb.
If I laugh at something that somebody would see as grave, yes. If I laugh at somebody's demise, if I laugh at somebody's loss, does that say something about me?
Yes. Probably you are a sadist. You are someone who is not even remorseful. Yeah. Don't care about the feeling of others, other families. And that's who you are. Yeah. So I guess it's as plain as it is.
Yeah. Yes. Straightforward.
It's straightforward.
True. Yeah. We can tell who you are by who you laugh at. All right, as we get into this conversation this morning, CS, before we get into NYS just a little bit, public service, looking at the work that's done, looking at the work around human capital, as well as special programs. You're handling a very big docket. It's one of the largest ministries in terms of the different departments that are there and what needs to be done. And when we look at the work that is being done in Kenya, how has that transition been for you so far?
The transition has been very fast because you used to be a member of parliament, used to only focus on one constituency, mainly the interest of one constituency, but you move very fast to the interest of all Kenyans, regardless of their political affiliations, because ministries or the government serve all Kenyans, whether you are supporting government or not. The government is there to serve all the people of the Republic of Kenya. So it is a very fast transition, but we are managing. Public service ministry also as well as the Ministry of Special Program, Ministry of Human Capital Development, is huge, as you have mentioned. Quite a number of responsibilities.
Right.
Because we have more than 55 at the moment, 55 million Kenyans who are demanding services from a workforce of about 1 million Kenyans, because the public servants are not more than 1 million Kenyans. And this is those who are working in the ministries, those who are working in parastatus, those who are working with police service, those who are working with teacher service commission, or those who are working with the judiciary, plus even the military. They are not more than 1 million Kenyans. And they are there to offer services to the entire population and to create an enabling environment for foreign investment, for business to thrive, local investments. So it's a lot of work.
Right.
Yes.
There's a lot of work, and it would appear as though there are lots of resources that are available for this work to be done. And I'm not just talking about money as a resource, but also as people as a resource. And one of those groups of people is the NYS, the National Youth Service. How many people are we looking at that make up the NYS today?
Let me say NYS is a very strategic national service institution. Very strategic. It was established in the year 1964, and its aim was to get those the youth who are in a fight against the colonials, bring them back to society, giving them basic skills so that they can be able to serve the nation. That was the main reason why National Youth Service was created in 1964, to reintegrate the young people in Kenya who are basically out there fighting for independence. But of course, that transitioned gradually to what NYS it is today. It was formed through an Act of Parliament. That Act of Parliament has gone through amendment, several amendments, to take shape, into the changing times. So it's a very strategic national institution, national service institution, and at the moment, 60 years down the line, many things have changed. We are talking about technology, we are talking about artificial intelligence, we are talking about young people who are restless, we are talking about young people who want to do a lot within the nation, and also getting a lot of influence from the other part of the world, because communication has become quite fast. It's very easy for young people to know what's happening in Far East, what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in America, and many as it happens. So we are in a situation where now we have to rethink how can the National Youth Service serve the young people of the Republic? How can National Youth Service, being a very strategic national service institution, how can it face the future?
So how many people are we looking at that make up the youth service?
At the moment, we have 20,000 young people who are getting trained in paramilitary training. That is in Girgir. That's a huge number. But by year 2027, the government is working towards increasing the number up to 100,000 young people getting trained at a go. Because you appreciate the fact that when you go to all corners of the Republic of Kenya, there are young people in our villages who are seeking to get skills, who are seeking to serve the nation. And those opportunities are not there. So we have 21 campuses of National Youth Service. How can we make these 21 campuses of National Youth Service more productive? How can we ensure that they are accommodating as many young people in the Republic of Kenya as possible? So one of the strategies which the government has employed is to ensure, moving forward, we are going to start commercialization. Because one of the things which has EDAD, the expansion of the National Youth Service is money. Is funding, because funding has been coming from the exchequer, from the consolidated account. But now, the funding has been a problem, not only to NYS but to many government institutions. So the question is, can we be able to use what the skills which National Youth Service instills to young people? We have seen National Youth Service offering security in many of government facilities. Can we extend this? Can we be able to get payment out of this? We have seen there is a lot of engineering which is done, trained at National Youth Service. May it be the repairing of motor vehicle, may it be the construction in roads or in a building. All this can be commercialized such that we can be able to, NYS can be able to earn money, and this money can be reinvested in expansion, in ensuring there are enough facilities for training of young people, so that we can be able to mop up young people across our villages in the country. If you go to a village today, I'm sure by the time you are the nearest market center, there will be more than 20 young people asking questions, asking you help them, you give them a read. We need urgently to do something as a nation so that these young people can have areas where they can be trained. Yes, true. We have we have polytechnics, technical institutes across the country. At least every constituency has a technical institute. But still, are they enough? No. So we have to create opportunities at a speed which is required for the young people to do national service, to get training, and more so discipline training, because that is the first training which is inculcated in the National Youth Service. 6 months paramilitary training for discipline. You have discipline all through your life, and then after that you do national youth service. You do national service for a year, and after which you go for vocational training depending on your areas of interest. So these are the areas where we think skill development, civic duty, and youth empowerment NYS will play a greater role moving forward in ensuring these are achieved. Skill development, civic duty, and youth empowerment.
Yes, 60 years of NYS, and a lot has happened. We've seen the numbers that continue to be churned out every other year with regard to the training that you talk about. But one would want to ask, what has stopped NYS from achieving the changes that you're talking about over the years?
One is the law which govern National Youth Service. We have an act of parliament which establishes National Youth Service. We have areas where we need some amendments so that the act can be tailored in such a way that is facing the future. NYS is facing the future probably. So that's one of the challenges. Number two, at the moment, as I mentioned, is that National Youth Service, whatever it corrects, must go to the exchequer, must be taken to consolidated account. And whatever is in consolidated account belongs to the people of Kenya and is shared across all the government institutions. So for us to allow NYS to commercialize the services, to retain money, and to use that money in reinvesting in facilities across the country, we have to. That process must be okayed by the Attorney General, by the Parliament of Kenya, by the Cabinet. So that process has not been there, has not been was not executed. But this is a process now which we are working on, and in a couple of weeks from now, we will be finishing the process. Setting up the commercial enterprise also requires some huge seed capital money, and also requires very serious and management. People who are properly trained. There has been consultation with quite a number of consultants, professors from University of Nairobi, UNES, on how we can establish the enterprise. And remember, where there is a need, where there is serious money, some people will come with all manner of ideas.
Right.
But what we are saying, we are here to serve the people of the Republic, and we will not tolerate anybody who may have other
plans,
other ideas.
Okay.
Which may drain them.
Commercialization comes with risks.
Yes.
And one of those risks is the history of our institutions, corruption. How, because you're proposing commercializing the NYS operations, how do you plan to balance revenue generation with NYS core values and mission of youth empowerment and national service?
Yeah.
How do you plan to balance that?
That's a very good question, a very critical question, and that is where the rubber meets the road. There will be employment of professionals, well-trained professionals, to that enterprise, to that national youth enterprises. Already the organization structure is ready. The qualification of those people who should fill those gaps or those positions in the organizational structure, the skills required are there. But myself as a minister, we have a PS, we have a Commandant General who will be on top of everything in terms of ensuring the management of that institution, enterprise, is well taken care of. Because we can't allow a situation where mismanagement of resources is happening, and a situation where we don't achieve what we intend to achieve. And the end goal is to ensure we get as many young Kenyans as possible in skill development, in civic duty, and of course they will come out as empowered, and they can go out there and do different things to build their family, to build the nation, to build the economy, and to make this country move forward.
Right. We saw NYS rather in action, and then begs the question that where will we actually see, which strategic places will we see NYS working and what they actually do? The potential that NYS has in this to be able to get things done in this country is huge. And when I say that we saw things in action, I remember during the series of services that took place for late former President Daniel Arap Moi. The things that we saw NYS do in terms of getting Nyayo Stadium from, falling apart to ready for service, and then the organization that we saw with the viewings of bodies, of the body at Parliament, and then on towards Kabarak, that was fully serviced by NYS. The order was impeccable. It was immaculate, and so we're able to see. So I hear what you're saying about the paramilitary training, where that discipline is instilled, because work can get done. Oftentimes we think that where government is involved, things just don't get done. But we see that it's happening. It happened. We saw it, and we all lauded it, and we said, this is fantastic. How will we see that potential then be replicated in the country, and in what sectors will we see that the NYS will actually work?
President of Kenya, William Ruto, has given very strong instructions as far as the future of NYS. And you'll be seeing this in coming days in terms of, for instance, involvement in our affordable housing program. To even further ensure that the work of moving the affordable housing program faster is accelerated by involving National Youth Service. That there are some jobs which can be done by National Youth Service faster, okay? And in terms of clearing these are clearing the where the project is being implemented. It can be done even faster by an organized team from NYS. For instance, at the moment, NYS is doing a Huduma Center in Runyenjes. It's the one which is constructing a Huduma Center in Runyenjes. This tells you that this is an institution, if properly structured, properly supported, and proper leadership, can do mega project across the nation. We have seen NYS also maintaining roads through agreement between the bodies which do roads like Kera in the rural areas because they have equipment in place, but sometimes without proper leadership, we may not see more of this. But moving forward from the instructions we have from the end of state, is NYS is going to be transformed, is going to be more robust, is going to enact the skills which are of the 21st century.
Can I link that to something that Dennis had, Dennis had said previously, when we're talking about, avenues for corruption. And here, by your own admission, CS, you've said that what NYS can actually do, Runyenjes, for example, and what's happening there. And I'm thinking about the different projects, just in construction. It can be building construction or road construction that are in the doldrums, that have been done year after year after year, and they yield nothing, and billions of shillings have been spent to get these projects done, and it doesn't happen. And we have examples of where a disciplined service like the NYS, who, by the way, and maybe you can, if I'm wrong, are paid by government. These individuals are paid something every month by government to be in the service, isn't it? So why not use their services in these projects where government has been spending billions of shillings, and we don't? I'll give you Mombasa Road as an example. Mombasa Road has been fixed and fixed and fixed and fixed by supposed contractors who seem to not know what they're doing. But we have an entire 20,000 strong service who, by your own admission, are skilled and can actually get these things done. Why has that not been implemented? And can it be something that could potentially get things done in the country and save a pretty shilling?
First, you don't put words in my mouth. I don't know of the project which government is spending money and there's nothing that is happening.
No. I said spending over and over roads, for example. And I'll give you another example. Enterprise Road, through agencies. Kura-Kera, you've mentioned them. And Enterprise Road, Mombasa Road, where for years they've never been finished. Through contractors.
I'll give you an example of quite a number of roads which have been contracted, but contractors have not been paid, and therefore they left the site. They left the site. That does not mean that money has been paid and spent by contractors, and those contractors have gone scot-free. No, contractors have been contracted. There was a shortage of resources. And this is the time when contractors across the country are going back to work, because government did some securitization of some funds, and now there are some resources which have been used to pay contractors, and that's why we are seeing most of the contractors across the country going back to the site.
So it's not work that NYS can do?
No. I'm just trying to explain a point, a misinformation, that we have contractors who have spent government resources in a bad way, misused government resources. And that's why I've said, from where I sit, I am not aware of misuse of resources in the road construction. But what the point was, the point which which you are making is, for instance, you'll be seeing in a couple of coming days, National Youth Service getting involved together with the Nairobi River Commission to clean up the Nairobi River. So we are going to use these young, well-skilled young people, well-trained, with proper equipment, together with the Nairobi River Commission, to clean up the entire of Nairobi River. This is a program which is going to be instituted by government through the leadership of His Excellency President Ruto. So we have, that's one of the examples. We have many other projects which will be coming up. But of importance is to realign, is to rethink that yes, we have come a time when we are 55 or 55 million Kenyans. Majority of those 55 million Kenyans, about 70-75% are young people. The mean age of our nation is 22 years. 22 years. So you can imagine, we have to move with speed, ensure these 22 years old young people are getting proper skills, getting to understand what civic duty is all about, and knowing that we have one nation, we have a country to protect, we have a country to ensure we build it with patriotism, which is required, and we get these young people out being empowered in skill-wise, in discipline, in civic duty, in focus, and in everything. So this is what we have to ensure that is going to happen as far as NYS is concerned. And as a minister, I'm moving with speed to ensure that is going to be achieved. And of course, these are the instructions of the end of state.
Can we take a break? Let's take a break at this point, and then we'll come back and continue with this, looking into NYS 60 years later and the potential that it actually has to move development in this country. Geoffrey Rocco is the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Public Service, Human Capital and Human Capital Development and Special Programs. And we'll come back after this break to continue with that at 26 minutes to 8. Don't go away.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This May, the stage is set, the mic is on, and the search begins.
Welcome to Next Superstar.
From raw vocals to big talent, the search is on for Africa's next hit maker. Next Superstar is here. Premiering May 3rd at 8 p.m. exclusively on Remo TV Plus, StarTimes Channel 56 or Channel 166. Buy a DTT StarTimes decoder for only 1,399 bob or a DTH for 3,199 shillings to enjoy unlimited entertainment. Join judges Size 8, King Kaka, Motive, and hosted by Maina and Butita on Next Superstar. Renew your subscription on DTH Smart Bouquet at 1,199 shillings only or DTT Basic Bouquet at 749 shillings only. You can dial *858# for self-service or call our customer care on 0730 710077. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Save money on your rising electricity bill with StarTimes Solar Home Solution. We offer a complete home and commercial energy saving system that includes solar panels with 15-year warranty, lithium battery with 10 years warranty, and an inverter with 5 years warranty. StarTimes Solar Home Solution is efficient, reliable, and safe to power essential appliances, complete home lighting, refrigerators, air conditioners, washing machines, microwaves, iron box, instant shower, and entertainment devices, television, computers, Wi-Fi, and so much more. Say yes to reduced electricity bills and call us today on 0719 077 777 and get started on your green energy journey today. StarTimes Solar. Power your life.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
At 24 minutes to 8 o'clock, Geoffrey Roko is the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Public Service, Human Capital Development and Special Programs, looking into matters around this ministry, really, as we continue this conversation.
Yeah, as we're going to break, Ndu raised something to do with corruption, and initially we've seen scandals that have rocked NYS, and even as you're working to rethink and reimagine the future of NYS moving forward, with a hope of having over 100,000 young people recruited into the service, and also realizing that it is the exchequer that is fully funding NYS right now. What are some of the measures that you're putting in place to ensure that that which you get, however little it is, that is put into prudent use and is not mismanaged?
Very good question. The President of Kenya has insisted that all the resources that is at disposal, as far as NYS is concerned, must be used prudently, and must be used as far as Article 232 of our Constitution, which talks about the principles and values of public service. Mm-hmm. And one of them is use of resources prudently. The costs must be within the required costs to meet the required target as far as the use of resources is concerned. And this is demonstrated by there were allegations I think a month ago, as far as we have some managers who have used resources wrongly, and they have been suspended. They have been suspended. At the moment, they are not in the offices as the investigations are undertaken. That shows the commitment of this government, the commitment of the President in ensuring that the resources available at NYS are prudently used, allocated appropriately and used appropriately. And anyone who feels that he can play mange business, then he will be in a lot of problems. That's for sure. Because already actions are being taken, we are watchful, and of course we have, at the moment the government is implementing e-government procurement system where everything is approved, where everything is done publicly, and anybody from any corner of the world can be able to see what each and every public institution is doing. So is procuring, and how the process of that procuring is happening. So we are on our toes as far as managing of the resources are concerned. This is a communication which I have done to all senior managers in National Youth Service, because these are the instructions of the President.
Yes, 2015-2018 NYS scandals. We know what happened to the prosecutions. And speaking of accountability, we've seen so many reforms within NYS through the years. But the constant issue is always corruption. Why is NYS repeatedly facing these corruption scandals despite these reforms? That's one. Two, you've spoken of procurement. How are procurement processes within NYS monitored? And who holds the officers in charge accountable?
Yes, it is true there were some issues in 2018 around there. There were some issues which were not very good as far as management of resources available at the NYS. And that's an issue which was taken care of properly, and implementation of new APRC program or management system within the National Youth Service. And from then up to now, things have been quite calm as far as use of resources or management of NYS is concerned. And of course, there were some changes within the National Youth Service Act, where the establishment of National Youth Council was put in National Youth Service Act, Because before there was no a board or a council. At the moment, the council is managed by, is ended by a general. Remember, General Mwaniki has been the chairman of the National Youth Council for the last 6 years. That is from 2018, I guess, to this month. And why do we need a general as a chairman of the council? Is because National Youth Service is also a reserve of the military. Remember, the paramilitary training for the 6 months is basically more or less the same kind of military training which soldiers go through. So is the end of military, that is chief of defense, not chief of defense. Who is what do you go the Kariri is what?
He's a CDF.
CDF, yes. He's member of the board. He's member of the board of National Youth Service as far as the act is concerned. At the moment, there is a new chairman of the council, General Murata Andan. So these are very disciplined people who have served the nation in military for many years. Murata has served the military for 43 years to a level of a general, a lieutenant general in Air Force. And of course, in the council, there is representation of CDF. So that changes were put in place 2018. And they have really assisted in stemming any cases of corruption. And any case of corruption which seems to be coming up, it is taken care of very early enough.
Have we seen such cases pop up that have been taken care of? Essentially? Such as what?
That's what I've said 1 month ago. There was some allegation. It's not yet established. Some allegation that there is corruption which is happening. All those who are mentioned in that allegations, they have been suspended officially. They are not in the offices until their names are cleared. That's not something that was happening before. So it shows a renewed commitment in terms of ensuring we are doing what is right as far as these institutions is concerned. Because we cannot allow to go back to 2018. A lot of work has been put in place, a lot of system has been implemented in NYS, and we can't allow anybody to take us back to 2018. So, and that's why, just a slight mention that there might be something happening here. All of them have been given leeway, please go home, until this matter is resolved.
You're referring to the 2 billion NYS college in Gilgil, right?
Yes.
What's the current status? Because you ordered the probe.
It's investigation which are going on at the moment, and they are going on when all those who are mentioned are home. Also we must allow the law to take its course. We cannot say that once you are accused, you are condemned. We have to ensure there is fair administration of justice as far as Fair Administrative Act is concerned, as far as Employment Act is concerned. But a situation where you are mentioned and then you still go to your office,
not going to be allowed.
Is not going to be around.
How does NYS get its money? Because I think this stems. Where does its money come from?
It's come from Exchequer,
all
from
of it?
Treasury.
Okay.
Yes.
There are activities.
Though there is some resources. For instance, there is growth. The many campuses.
Yes.
If you go to Yatta, they are growing maize. So the maize,
farms, yes.
in the farm, those maize they use they can make it flour and cook Okari. They have tomatoes, they have bananas, they have cows. So they have this in-house project which can feed themselves. But basically money comes from government of Kenya, from Treasury.
Okay.
Yes.
CS, do we have? I'm going to ask a question based off reports that I've seen, and there are two questions in terms of underperformance in revenue collection, in terms of services that NYS does do, and that is there was 400 million shillings against a budget of 723.6 million, which is a shortfall of around 45%, and there is no explanation as why that is the case. And then there is lack of revenue management automation, which is in terms of the farming and security services that NYS does offer. There is reports that there is no automation services to be able to stop all the loss of revenue that is being collected by NYS. So what are we doing to fix that? Because then again, there are reports that NYS is losing money by not streamlining its processes.
I don't get it as far as revenue collection, but the thing is, we are in the process of ensuring all the services, the ones you have mentioned, are going to be legally commercialized, and the instruments which are required in law are in place. That's a process which is going to take not more. We have done a lot of already. More than 75% of work is done towards commercialization of these services we are talking about. Once that is done, all the automation, all the necessary checks and balances, all the systems will be put in place to ensure the enterprise is run in the most professional manner, because this will be a company, this will be an enterprise, this will be just like the way we run other businesses, private businesses in the market. So this is going to be done in a very near future to ensure we have enough resources to expand the services of NIS in terms of skills development for the young people, which is very, very, very key to the president, and also empowerment of the young people, which is very, very key at the heart of our president. So this must be achieved, and this is something I'm doing every day. I'm pushing the command, and I'm pushing everyone is involved as far as NYS things are concerned, to ensure we are moving with the necessary spirit.
Okay.
Because as I have mentioned before, young people are out there, millions of them. We have to do something.
Indeed. You mentioned that money comes from the exchequer that funds NYS.
Yes.
We also, you said, again, I'm going back to what you talked about, that they are skilled. They are skilled in many areas. Can we imagine a situation where, on a grand scale, that the skill that is being put into these 20,000 and raising that number to 100,000 at some point, that these skills are actually used for projects around the country that are currently paying other contractors? Can you imagine?
Yes, that is now what we are talking about. We are paying other contractors, though also other contractors are supposed to be engaged.
Sure,
but we are saying, for instance, if it is a affordable housing program, let 30% of the work be done by National Youth Service. Let our youth be involved in such kind of project. The Nairobi River, which we are going to use National Youth Service in cleaning up together with, in cooperation with the Nairobi River Commission, that service, that work done, NYS will be paid. If it is the servicing of government vehicle and also private vehicles, who is likely to do it better? Is it the petrol stations which we have everywhere, or is it these guys we know indeed? These are serious fellows. These are well-skilled people. These are disciplined people. These are guys who have been taught how to be patriotic, how to serve with dedication and commitment. So we have, if it is engineering services, road constructions, already there are quite a number of projects which have been constructed by National Youth Service. Even if it is assembly of probably motorcycles, rockery assembling of motor vehicles, such as motorbike or even vehicles. This is something which can be done by the young people based at NYS in our all the field stations we have. If it is hospitality, we have seen very nice catering services being offered by National Youth Service. If it's security services, securing our buildings, we have seen in town government offices being secured by National Youth Service. So we can go even to private building getting secured by national. Who will you trust? Is it the guys who are trained at the National Youth Service or some people who you don't know where they are trained from?
Where they've come
from. So there is a huge opportunity of doing business as National Youth Service and getting more resources to expand this very strategic national institution and make it more robust, make it more that you can be able to train more than 100,000 young people in a year. And this will move our country forward. The good thing is, this is the vision of the president, and he's committed to ensuring that is done.
It's the NYS CS is part of the government structure, right? And one would argue in the sense that NYS has equipment that the government could take in terms of using that to repair roads. The NYS, county governments could equally just outsource services, repairing of machines, equipment, vehicles, and whatnot. NYS can do that.
Yes.
So what has stopped the government from taking these services because it is one big house?
As I have said, it is an idea that it's what we say is now the time to implement that. And that's what we are saying. We are reimagining, we are rethinking how we can position National Youth Service to be a future, a future-facing national service institution. And one of the key steps is what we are talking about, commercializing of National Youth Service, so that it can open up the opportunities which have been rocked before. It can unlock all these opportunities. We see National Youth Service offering some of these services to our county governments across the country. And by the way, out of these 21 field stations we have across the country, you'll find almost every county, if not all of them, somewhere has, all the regions have a National Youth Service station, field station. So it is possible for all these field stations to be more robust, to be more, to be properly made use of in our regions. And the rand which this station, this national, this or the other NYS has, we have to make use of that, because rand is one of the very scarce resource and very vital factor of production, which is very much available as far as National Youth Service is concerned. So I think we are at the right time. 60 years after National Youth Service was established, is going to take a new shape for the purposes of empowering our young people, skilling our young people in a most appropriate way, and ensuring that we have a civic duty as young people of the Republic of Kenya, that this is our nation, this is our country. Regardless of what happens, we have to protect our nation, we have to be patriotic, we have to serve Kenya with dedication and commitment.
One of the other issues around this is the recruitment what do we don't call them soldiers, we call them servicemen. What do we call the people who serve in NYS just as a, what do we call
NYS
them?
recruits?
Recruits. No, after they're recruited, what are they? What are they called?
Servicemen.
The trainee servicemen and women? Okay, fine. The recruitment is a fiasco. We have people who buy positions. We have people who are unqualified and get these positions. We also have the psyche that it is people who have not been able to make it in school who join NYS. How do we solve this issue of the recruitment of NYS recruits? How do we solve this issue of people bribing their way in to get these positions to ensure that what you're trying to achieve, CS, is actually not then seen as something that's counterproductive?
One of the things which also is going on is reimagining also the curriculum of National Youth Service. What is this can be done as far as the curriculum is concerned to get more young people trained at a short period, and it is a revolving thing. It's a quick turnaround thing. Of course, there were suggestions as far as paramilitary training, whether they can go for less than 6 months, but standards have been done and not possible. We have to maintain the 6 months for the training. But these other vocation training is not a must for NYS curriculum to be in tandem with the Ministry of Education curriculum. At the moment, is in tandem with the Ministry of Curriculum. When a student within the Ministry of Education are going for holidays, everybody goes for holidays. So it takes time. So if we are working on seeing how do we get our own standalone curriculum so that we can have high turnaround process of churning out, training young people, and more coming in, going for different areas of our country to go and serve this nation, but also ensuring that the skills we backed are high quality skills, is not half-baked because of the very quick turnaround of training. So this is something we are trying to work as far as the curriculum of NYS is concerned, to see whether we can take it away from the Ministry of Education curriculum.
There's a question of the Auditor General.
Yes.
And there are several issues that have always been a constant. One, very quickly, the issue of unsupported assets. So there's the question of lack of a proper, accurate asset register from NYS, which makes it very difficult then to verify the existence and value of property, plant, equipment, worth billions of shillings. What is it that you're doing as the CS to account for this?
Okay, that's a good question in terms of unsupported assets. It is true, NYS has many assets, and the management of NYS is they are supposed to keep a proper record of the assets of all available assets within National Youth Service. Yes, we are ensuring that we have proper asset management, what we may call, proper asset management system. Proper asset management system. One of them is, of course, very common in the market at the moment, is tagging of all the available assets, but some of these assets are machines and huge machines. For instance, if you go to the engineering department of NYS, you'll find there are many huge engineering machines, but the management is under very strong instructions to ensure the asset management system is well in place. We know where the assets are located. We know what the asset is, from even a very small desk to a very expensive machine. That register of all the assets
is
there. And it should be updated again and again, as because some of them will become obsolete. In terms of some of them are not working. There were desks which were in place and are broken, unrepairable. You see, so asset management is key. You have mentioned before. I didn't answer your question about the qualification of the young people. The qualification of young people for NYS recruitment is basically why there is some issues as far as intake is because of the limited slot which we have. If we are talking about 5,000, 500 positions, 500,000 positions available every year, we will not be having these problems.
But you have limited.
But now we have limited, and that's why President said we must ensure by the year 2027 we have 100,000 young people getting recruited to NYS.
Our time is short, and unfortunately we can't go beyond this, but we want to thank you, CS Geoffrey Roku, for being here this morning from the Ministry of Public Service, Human Capital Development and Special Programs, looking at NYS 60 years down the line. Asante Sana.
Thank you so much.
Good morning at 2 minutes past 8.
Good morning. This is the news wire. Amla Ubaga. Treasury has rejected a proposal to provide the Office of the Auditor General Nancy Gadungu with a consolidated budget. In a presentation to Parliament, Principal Secretary for National Treasury Chris Kipto has argued that maintaining the budget should be transparent. The ministry's position is in direct contradiction with the March 2023 resolution of the National Assembly Committee on Budget and Government Expenditure, which unanimously directed the Treasury to submit a consolidated budget to the Office of the Auditor General for the 2025-2026 financial year. Auditor General Nancy Gadungu complained that the current system, where funds are released from the National Treasury, limited her ability to respond to budget audit issues. Now, the dispute comes amid a wide-ranging investigation into the use of public funds, with recent reports by the Auditor General revealing billions in questionable expenditure in national and county governments. This year, the office has been allocated a budget of 8.69 billion shillings, an increase of 36 million. Civil society organizations have criticized the lack of financial independence, with AFRICOG in a recent report condemning the issue. Now, the push for reforms in the United Nations, especially the expansion of the number of members of the United Nations Security Council, is among the main agenda items that Foreign Affairs CS Musalia Mudavadi is expected to address during his visit in Zambia. Now, Mudavadi, who is in Lusaka, Zambia, is set to attend the 13th session of the African Union Committee of Ministers and Governments on the reform of the United Nations, which began on June 3rd, that is yesterday, and will go all the way until tomorrow. Now, the session known as C10 aims to push for the presence of 2 African countries that will become permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. The C10 committee also aims to highlight historical injustices in Africa committed by developed countries, press for repatriations, but also to call for reforms by re-examining African representation policies at the UN Council. Among the members of the C10 committee are Algeria, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Kenya, Libya, Namibia, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Uganda, and Zambia. And in the international scene, an attack on a UN food convoy in Sudan overnight killed 5 people and prevented food deliveries to children and families who faced starvation in North Darfur's Al-Fashir. UN agencies said 5 members of the convoy were killed and several more people were injured. Multiple trucks were burned and critical humanitarian supplies were damaged. They did not say who was responsible and called for an urgent investigation into the attack, which they said was a violation of international humanitarian law. That's the news wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing policy of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 7 minutes after 8. Let's see if we can do 7 minutes after 9 as well. Right on the money this morning. The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, continues into its third hour. And it is finance season, isn't it? Where we're looking at the numbers that Kenya is going to be playing in the next year or so into the new fiscal year. It's about 3 to 4 weeks to budget day, essentially when the budget will then be given in Parliament. And there are many conversations around that. The finance bill, essentially, which gives life to the budget, is one that is being put into public participation that has started this week. And then we look into issues around taxes. What are the hits, what are the misses, and what are the hidden costs? And to help us into that conversation this morning, Ndu Okoh is a political economist and is our friend with the numbers. And he's in the hot seat this morning. Ndu, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
How are you doing?
Generally fine.
Generally. And if we go specific? The devil is in the details, as they say, and that'll come into play, that's for sure. Welcome.
Thank you.
To the hot seat. We are in a different country, and... well, actually, I'm saying we're in a different country. That could have so many meanings. But literally, geographically, for the proverb perspective, we're in a different country this week. Dennis is going to share that with you, and then we want you to interpret the proverb for us.
Go.
Today, below, we are in Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. It's an interesting country. It is a country that is surrounded by South Africa, and one of the greatest things that stands out about Eswatini is the fact that it is one of the countries in Africa that has absolute monarchy, still has a king and the leadership and everything. And every December and January, there is a spiritual moment where the king goes in to just cement his authority as the spiritual leader of the kingdom. And an interesting country to visit. Perhaps they have an interesting culture. Yes. Yes.
That selection.
Selection that takes place. Now, the proverb today, a man shows his character by what he laughs at. A man shows his character by what he laughs at. What do you make of that?
Wow. It's interesting. Well, if you are... I don't know whether it's similar to the English proverb. Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Sounds a bit close to that, but what I get from that is that there are people who take certain situations. The way you take situations depends on the way you react to it. Your reaction tells you what you think or what you think of some situations. When there's a serious matter and someone is, I think your reaction kind of tells people who you are really in terms of your understanding, your character or your knowledge. I think this is probably what it means. I don't know.
Yeah. Pretty much your silence that does not really bring out who you are. The moment you open up, especially to comment on something, then we can form a basis to say you belong this side. Well put.
Indeed. We're in a finance season. Proper. Some of us sometimes forget that the budget process starts at the end of August. And then brings us
9 months process.
9-month process, right? Brings us to right about this time where then the elements of the finance bill are then brought out, and then we go into a series of public participation, which we are currently in.
Keeping us busy these days, every Kenyan, literally.
Yeah, and that is a practice. It's been happening.
Yeah.
But in 2024, probably historically, is the first time that it was then put out on a large national scale, and by virtue of that on an international scale, a global scale as well. And then we saw after that there was this renaissance, essentially, where everybody wanted to know, to a clear understanding, what happens with the country's resources, how they will be spent, where they will be gotten from, how much tax you will be subjected to, what projects the government is involved in. Everybody wants to know, whether it is the person who is sweeping or the person who's sitting in their luxury vehicle, across board, cutting across social strata. Everybody wants to know what is going on. Brings us 2025, whereby it would appear as though folks have been a little bit more careful in terms of what goes into the finance bill, or have they? And I guess that's the question we start. Yes. Or have they been smarter?
Yeah.
Or have they hidden things in plain sight? And so that's what we want to open up today. Of course, we're coming off the place where people have tried to explain what the finance bill actually is presenting for Kenyans this time round, and we've ended up in court behind bars. But we're going to do it a little bit more today. And have we gotten to a place whereby now the finance bill is protecting or injuring Kenyans? Bilo?
These days, everyone I see, including even people working in my business, the first thing they ask is, what is in the finance bill this time? Everyone is so keen about it. After last year, it has really broadened the understanding of what all these things are about, and people want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
But there are two aspects. If you look at finance bill, there are two issues I think that I want to bring out. One, the government's perspective. For the government, it's always about the revenue. That's what the finance bill is about. How do you raise revenue? Additional revenue for running the government, to meet the additional expenditure. That's as far as the government is concerned. Nothing else. The rest is all, a story on, policies, on how to do this and how to generate that. But for the businesses, for instance, and the public, it's not about the revenue. It's about what is the impact of finance bill on your cost of living. What is the impact on your life? And that's the aspect that we are looking at when we are looking. So the two are that's why the two are always at odds. The government wanted to raise revenue, and Kenyans are looking at what is the impact on my life. And that is the part that the government doesn't want to bring out always, the impact of the finance bill. So if you look at finance bill generally, any time, including this one, to answer your question, simply put, it would injure, of course, because it would affect your life adversely, because it would affect your cost of living. That there's no doubt about it. Even this one, which many people would look at it and say, no, this is not as bad as last year.
Yeah.
There are no new taxes. You look at those are the terms the government used when the CS was discussing this a couple of months ago. We said no new taxes on this one. You'll not find them. But at the end of the day, when you play smart, that's the way. Let me put it that way. Then the devil is in the details. You'll find that some of the measures that they have taken would obviously have a significant impact on the lives of Kenyans, on the cost of living. But the simple reason that you want to raise additional revenue, however small it is, means you have to get some more taxes.
Right.
From that finance bill. That's basically what it means. That simply put, and there's no doubt that the fact that it is there means you have to raise some revenue, and they're going to raise some revenue, and it's going to have an impact here.
Okay. Is it possible to do this the word progressive is put behind other jurisdictions, whereby progressive means that your economy is moving forward, it's thriving, and at the same time you're able to take care of the livelihoods of people, whereby they don't feel the pinch as much, on one hand. And then number two, there's actual visible, tangible manifestation of what these taxes are actually doing. So is it possible then to have a tax regime in place that does the things that they are needed, whereby the people are taken care of?
Mm-hmm. Look at it this way. There's no time in the history of this country Kenyans have said we don't want to pay taxes. Kenyans have been paying taxes. In fact, we pay, and I've always repeated this, we pay the highest amount of tax in the whole of East and Central Africa. More than all of these African countries combined. I mean, there's no doubt that we have no objection to paying, and Kenyans are paying taxes. The question is this tax working for you? And is it being done in a manner that really helps the economy also grow and also have money? You have some money in your pocket and meet your cost of living and so forth. No, those are the challenges. That the way the government has looked for taxes in this country has let me use the word, has become punitive. Really, I mean you're looking at, we must raise revenue. You're not looking at other aspects of the action. For example, that people need to have some money. They need to have some disposable income. They need to, you have got school fees to pay. You have got so many other things you need to do. So it's not all about giving money to government and government working for you. I need to do some things myself. So I think there's something about, if you look at our constitution, that talks to the burden of tax. That cautions is one of the principles in public finance, that it should not be a burden on society. Governments, yes, have the powers through the parliament to tax, but they don't have absolute power to tax the way they want. It's up to the people through their representatives to determine how much money we want to give to government to do whatever we want. The rest we want to keep. I mean, we want to do our own things.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the concept. But where Parliament then loses that, and executive also loses that, then it appears that we are the ones who know what is good for you. Bring the money.
So
I think that is where the trouble we are in now, where the government thinks they have a monopoly of ideas. They determine your life, and they're the ones who decide what to do, and they tell you, give us all the taxes, collect more taxes. So every year you're increasing 300, 400, 500 billion, in your expenditures.
Yeah. Carol, you've mentioned something that is very critical, in the sense that whenever we look at a finance bill, there is always the aspect of raising more taxes and the impact that would have on the people. And that the government would never want to share this information on the impact that additional revenue, additional taxes would have on a common mwananchi. Is it about time that the government finally started having honest and open conversations with Kenyans so that we all can agree? Because like you've said, Kenyans have never said we do not want to pay taxes. We want to have honest conversations so that we all agree on how we move forward. Is it about time?
No, but you remember when this administration came in, there was a lot of talk about, why don't we have a conversation on these things? Why don't we have a national, gathering of Kenyans to discuss the economy, so that we actually decide what is that we want, because you want to grow some aspects of the economy, but when you put taxes, it's really pushing down that aspect of that sector of the economy. And there's many examples of the economy. Where does tax come from? It's from businesses. People have to make an earning. If you have level of earning, if your income is going to be affected, you can't do business. You shut down. Today I was reading in one of the media that NSF complaining that in the last 2-3 years, up to nearly 500 employers who are paying contributions, for the employees, shut down. I mean, but when you look at the statistics, they'll tell you millions of companies have shut down in the last 5-6 years. So the thing is, there's need to have that. But I don't think the government, this one and any other, would be willing to discuss that, because they know that the bottom line means they would be stopped from doing certain things. But that conversation is available every day through our representatives in Parliament. Every day is available to them. But that's the challenge we have, that Parliament is not really putting its foot down and saying, no, this is not good for our people. You saw it in the finance bill, where things were there are measures that were specifically hurting a particular MP and his farmers and his own electorates, and they went ahead and still voted for it. And later saying, oh, sorry, we had to.
Where do you see this going, Carol? Because there's one part is, this is what we are proposing in the budget. The other conversation is, this is the impact of that proposal. What then you're saying is, on this other side, they don't want us to talk about the impact. And you look at the case of Rose Njeri. She was using her skills to try to educate the public through civic education, using a platform that is free for everyone, that, hey, look, this is what is contained in this. And very quickly, 3, rejection of Section A, Part 1 of the first schedule, which talks about zero-rated status for essential goods. And she is actually then saying this is going to increase the cost of living, especially for low-income households. And you go on and so forth. So where do you see this going? Because all of a sudden, there's this interest into the finance bill like we've never had before.
There's no two ways about it. Kenyans have to continuously speak about this matter. There's no other way about it. You must continuously talk about it and agitate for change on some of these things. Because the government would obviously want you to keep quiet. And they introduce the taxes and people pay taxes and suffer. They don't really think about anything else. But there's also what used to happen in the good old days. Yeah. Let me use the word, the good old days. Government used to engage with various sectors of the economy. It used to be, budgeting used to be a serious business. To do a finance bill was a very complicated thing for a finance minister in the old days, before up to around 2013. Before 2013, let me put it that way. It was not an easy thing, because you had to balance between the interest of the businesses, the farmers, the public, and all those things. They had to really weave their way through to find out how to get some little income to try and balance their budget. But nowadays, it's become, it's shocking. You just sit in the office and say, 5% on this, 15% on this, 16%.
Let's get what we can.
Let's get what we can. And completely disregard all the submissions. And you saw it in 24. Hundreds of institutions submitted. Thousands and thousands of submissions were made, and they just pushed aside and they went ahead with whatever they had. And that's the sad thing, but that's the way things are supposed to be. That engagement is critical in any country. That's what they do. I mean, you must talk to a sector and tell them, look, you are in fertilizer, we are in famine. We want to remove fertilizer from zero rating to exempt from your sector. What do you think would be the impact? You talk to the people who are in that industry, in the farming sector and so forth.
They are actually the ones
who would then tell the government, look, if you do that, there would be no impact. We are not going to pass that cost, and there will be no impact. Then the government say, okay, then perhaps we can introduce this. Or they'll tell you, no, the moment you remove that, and we can claim that VAT, there's going to be a 16% increase in the cost of fertilizer. And then they say, okay, maybe we'll need to look for something else. But if you don't engage, and you just sit down and, in Treasury and come up with something, and then you go around to the public and say, what do you think? And whatever we think is, again, not...
really doesn't matter. So, Bilo, we're saying that essentially public participation can actually be beneficial to government. It is not necessarily just to hear the views of the people and then put it in a box and put it onto the table.
Oh, yes.
But you can actually use this for this progressive economy that we are talking about.
Exactly.
The practitioners in the industry can tell you, look, if you taxed here and not impact. Here, this will be the impact.
Exactly.
So it can actually happen
and
in that manner.
If you look at the submissions, for example, by the sector, the Kenyan Association of Manufacturers, they actually tell them exactly what the impact of every measure that has been proposed in the finance bill is going to be. And then when they disregard it, a year later, 2 years later, and they see the impact, then they start backtracking. You remember that thing, for example, let me give you a good example. The 17% import tax that they introduced on importing and construction materials like cement and so forth, and clinker and those things. And they said, we want to encourage local land, whatever. And they were told, look, we don't have capacity. There was a meeting that was held a couple of years earlier that was agreed that a timeline by which we will be self-sufficient in our own clinker production and so forth and so forth. And the government ignored all that, and they said, no, we're going to introduce 16. If you import any of those, penalty, 17% on that. 2 years later, they were told the impact on the cost of your construction, on the building sector, on business in general, in that whole sector, they saw it. They started backtracking. Now I think they're proposing it should be reduced to 5%. So sometimes they're given all this information. And it's not that people don't want to pay. I keep repeating this. But people, the government is being told this is the impact of your action on the economy. And the same economy that you want to generate income, taxes from. Because if you affect my business, how will I generate more taxes? I'll give you, for example, the sector I'm in. I'm in vegetable, in the cooking oil sector. The amount of taxes we pay, if you import 1 ton of crude, palm oil or crude vegetable oil, is up to 31% of the cost. 31% on at the port of Mombasa. That's what
to bring it in.
Including taxes and levies, yes. Taxes, duty, 10%, plus all those other things, railways and whatever, levy and everything, VAT. And so when you find that product sold now, all that cost
is transferred.
Plus another 16% on it, that VAT that you're going to charge again. So you get into a situation where nearly 40-50% of your cost on a product that is basic, essential, it's because of the taxes. And this, I keep saying, countries like, go to Ethiopia, go to Egypt. Some of these countries, they don't, on basic essential commodities, they simply do not even tax it because they want the cost of living to be low. Even if you don't have a job, you should be able to have some bread on the table or something on the table to eat. That's the way they look at it.
There's an argument that I've had. This is the argument now from this other side. You look at our economy. 80% of Kenya's economy is from the informal sector. So when you're doing tax proposals, the idea then is effectively you'll broaden the tax base, which essentially is going to stifle these small businesses or sectors. How then do you balance? Because this is 80%. So the bulk of what you're going to get is coming from these 80%. So in order for you to generate, you have to stifle. So there is that question of you have to. How do they balance this?
No, it's not. Look, we we know that 80% of the people in this country survive on subsistence, what we call informal economy, but basically what you're saying is the subsistence farmer or people are surviving on their own, self-employed on the farms, and very so low an income that you cannot even think of introducing some of the taxes that ideally would be compared to other developed countries like America, where that kind of SMEs or that kind of informal sector is very small, it's less than 10%. But at the same time, if you look at the level of taxes that are collected in UK and in US, the percentage of the population who pays taxes, compare also with Kenya, the difference is not very huge. I was just looking at, for example, in UK, it's about 50, less than 50% of the population. And then you look at Kenya, they want to push it to 30-something%. And, it's over 30-something%. And this is a country where over 80% of the people are not people who can generate enough income to pay this form of tax or that form of tax. So to answer your question, I think, you see, you do not kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. The 20% of the outside the informal, the 20% is the one that generates all the income, for example, from which the government generates most of its taxes. These are the employees in the formal sector. These are the people in manufacturing sector, people in big businesses. These are the people who generate most of the taxes. And so when you broaden, if the idea of broadening, when we came up with VAT in just around Kibaki's time, in the beginning of just before Kibaki's time, but one of the policies Kibaki came up with was that, look, direct taxes, which are income tax on your salary, on your earnings, profit, and so forth, are very difficult to collect. And it also has significant impact on your cost of living and so forth. So he came up with, and it's a bit of a imbalance. It creates a bit of unfairness because only those who are earning will pay.
Yes.
So they came up with a policy that let us expand on indirect taxes, the taxes which everybody can pay. This is VAT.
Yes.
Value taxes. So they introduced VAT on virtually everything.
Right.
So even if I am not somebody who is working, if I go and buy a bottle of water, I'm paying 16% tax. If I buy my pencil for the school, even your kid at home, he's got VAT, he's paying tax.
Yeah.
So that way, there's some sort of fairness, and everyone is paying taxes. So, but the issue is that's why I keep saying the issue then is not about the paying. Paying, everyone is paying tax. The issue is how much do you want? How much should you collect? How much is enough? I mean, so you keep saying every year, increase it by another 500 billion, increase by another 500 billion. Today, our expenditure is 4.2 trillion. I mean, it's crazy. It's $40 billion. Just go and add up all the expenditure budgets for Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi, all of them combined. It will be less than the 40 billion.
And Carol,
one country.
Yeah, and Carol, there is the aspect of the government wanting to increase taxes. Then there is the aspect of deficit that is there, which then pushes the government to go into borrowing. And you look at, if I look at just the summary of the bill, the fiscal deficit in the financial year 2025-2026 will be financed by net external financing of 284.2 billion shillings, and in the domestic market 591.9 billion shillings. Just what does that do to the manufacturing sector, to those who want to go get loans for them to be able to push their business? How does that affect the economy in terms of growing if the government itself is going into the domestic market to borrow?
You know, what is debt? In public sector, debt simply means accumulation of the deficit, budget deficits. So when you do a budget like this one, your proposed expenditure is 4.2 trillion, and your estimated revenue, you're saying, is going to be 3.3 or something.
Yes,
close to that, 3.3 trillion. So you're saying I have a deficit of approximately 900
billion.
That deficit is what we call debt, because you have to borrow it. That's what it is. So that has accumulated all this 11 trillion, 12 trillion that we are stuck with today. And so ultimately what happens is that then the little revenue that you collect, the 3.3 trillion, about half of it then goes into paying those debts, which are due, because you've collected this over years. And so you got into a vicious cycle where now you have no choice but borrow more again in order to finance this budget.
I have to ask about this 900 billion just before we go to a break here. Is that so? If you say that your budget for you to do everything that you need to do in a fiscal year is 4.2 trillion, right? You say this is what we have available, 3.3. Okay, so you're looking for 900 billion. We also know that according to the law, you can only borrow for development, or you can borrow to meet in the short term a budget deficit. Now, does this fall into borrowing for a budget deficit? This 900 billion?
No, you see now, that's the way the figures are. But in the numbers which are submitted in the official documents, you will not see the 900 billion.
What will you say?
The figures will be hidden in a number of ways. One, there are existing debts which are rolled over, which mature. This will be rolled over. So some of the 900 will be included in those ones which will be rolled over again. Some you'll be borrowing through domestic, and that will specify. That will borrow 200 from the domestic market or something. Others will come through aid from people who are financing projects. They put like external financing of some road or some project. So you will not see an actual figure saying that I'm going to borrow now 900. But so the law now, when you look at now compliance with the law, they'll tell you, look, as far as the law is concerned, we have only borrowed this amount. They will not. The other figures will not be considered as loans. You know, and that's the way they get around the law.
Let's take a break at this point. Political economist Ndu Okoh is here with us this morning, and we're looking at the tax hits, misses, the things that we don't see, what exactly is going on. So let's look into a little bit more closely when we come back from this break, then what this all means. And when we say that finance bill is in place, essentially now that will give life to the budget, what are some of the things that we actually see will happen? And just because you participate publicly, does it mean that it'll be thrown out if you don't like it? Probably not. At 25 to 9, we'll be back after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Me, start
This May, the stage is set, the mic is on, and the search begins.
Welcome to Next Superstar.
From raw vocals to big talent, the search is on for Africa's next hit maker. Next Superstar is here. Premiering May 3rd at 8 p.m. exclusively on Remo TV Plus, StarTimes Channel 56 or Channel 166. Buy a DTT StarTimes decoder for only 1,399 bob or a DTH for 3,199 shillings to enjoy unlimited entertainment. Join judges Size 8, King Kaka, Motive, and hosted by Maina and Butita on Next Superstar. Renew your subscription on DTH Smart Bouquet at 1,199 shillings only or DTT Basic Bouquet at 749 shillings only. You can dial *858# for self-service or call our customer care on 0730 710077. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Save money on your rising electricity bill with StarTimes Solar Home Solution. We offer a complete home and commercial energy saving system that includes solar panels with 15-year warranty, lithium battery with 10 years warranty, and an inverter with 5 years warranty. StarTimes Solar Home Solution is efficient, reliable, and safe to power essential appliances, complete home lighting, refrigerators, air conditioners, washing machines, microwaves, iron box, instant shower, and entertainment devices, television, computers, Wi-Fi, and so much more. Say yes to reduced electricity bills and call us today on 0719 077 777 and get started on your green energy journey today. StarTimes Solar. Power your life.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
23 minutes to 9
Spice
o'clock. We continue with these conversations this morning. Bill Okaro is here with us. And, one thing you said, Bill, is that, yes, we're looking at the numbers, we're crunching, and we're saying, okay, this is what it means. In the fiscal year ending July 2026, this is what to expect. The numbers are very important. But then more important is for us to talk about these things, that if we don't talk about them, that we're doing a disservice, first of all, to ourselves, and then, to the general public at large, in terms of what this actually means and how it affects you. And so that is actually part of citizen-based governance, to say that, look, we need to know exactly what's happening, because it's very easy to hide things in the mask of ignorance. You can hide it there because you know that people are not going to ask, people are not going to speak, people are just going to take it as it comes and, fly with it. So now when we look at some of these things that could be concealed in the details, what are some of those things that we're probably going to have to I don't want to say look forward to in the next 12 months or have the displeasure of experiencing when it comes to this new tax regime?
You see, look at the most common one that has been discussed by everyone. This moving quite a number of products in the pharmaceutical sector, in fertilizers and many others, from zero rating to being exempt from VAT. Simply put, what you are telling, what you are doing, the reason why you are doing that, because there's a reason why you are doing it. You're not just doing it because the word zero rating and exempt
nice.
have no meaning. No, they'll tell you very smartly, look, there's no tax on exempt, and there's no tax on zero. There's nothing. There's no difference. That's what the government will tell you. When they want to be smart. But then, okay, if there's no difference, then why are you moving it from this schedule to the other schedule? It's because it has an impact. It has an impact. Because here, I am able to claim that input tax, that VAT on the raw materials that I import in order to make those products. On the other one, on the exempt one, I will not have that opportunity. So what they're saying then is they're avoiding, that because what it means, input means that if I am buying this phone, I am going to be sold this one 100,000 shillings, for example. Then the invoice will read 100,000 plus 16% VAT they'll charge.
Yes.
So if it is zero rated, that is what I'll pay. So that 16 now, if I am selling it again, I will also charge another 16% on it. So I will knock off my 16 on that out when I'm selling, with the other 16% that I paid when I was buying it. But now, when you're moving it to zero, I will not be able to do that offset. That's basically what it means. That I will charge that 16% for them and pay them. but I will not be able to
You
offset.
can't recharge.
Yes. When it is 0, that 16 which I paid, I will not be able to offset. That's what it means on exempt. So they will get their 16. That's what it means.
But you won't.
But otherwise, they would have got nil because I would have offset between the two. Now they will collect the 16 straight. So it's a way of getting more revenue. And so now for me, I will still charge 16%. So my phone will still have the same price. So in fact, it will be more because, now I was getting 16 minus 16, I was getting 0. So now because I have to pay 16, I will now charge that 16 will be an additional fee that
so the original cost of the phone now you will say is 120,000 shillings, for example. Exactly.
And I'll now charge you 16% more on the VAT when I'm charging you. So the thing will be more expensive to you. So the government is getting their revenue. That's the main thing. But to you'll be paying more.
You learn something
otherwise, because I would have knocked off the 2, I would have said, okay, I'll sell at 100. Because that 16 I was charged and recovered through the other 16.
So for purposes of clarity below, and I think this is very important because I think today somebody has heard something that we've never really understood today. That when you say 0 rating, what that means is that you pay 16 when it is coming in terms of tax. And then when you sell the item, you can charge 16 on it, right? Now, when it's exempt, you pay 16, but when you say it's exempt from taxes, you cannot now charge 16 again. It cannot come in form of tax. But what usually happens is that people will now add it anyway on the cost of the item and not as a tax element. Am I right?
You see, anytime if you're a businessman, you're buying inputs, you're buying raw materials.
Yeah.
Those things have got taxes on them.
Yes.
If my products are 0 rated, I can claim that input, that extra tax which I paid when I was buying those things. But when it is exempt, I cannot claim.
Yes.
I cannot claim. So that loss of funds that I lost on that payment
is piled on you who are buying.
Yes, I'll put it on to the people who are buying. That's basically what it means. Yeah, so that's the cost that will be passed on. Of course, it's all up to the businessman.
So it's not a benefit to anybody, really. It's a benefit just to government.
To the government, yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. If there was no benefit, they wouldn't move it. The reason why they're moving it is they're avoiding that offset and they're going to get their VAT.
So the conversations around this bill, what areas are of a concern to you, or what areas should Kenyans really be concerned about?
For me, as a businessman, let me tell you. You see, everything that affects the businessman affects the common man, because eventually, what do businessmen do? They're producing products, services, and they're selling to people. So if they are going to be affected by any measure within the finance bill, it's going to affect you and me, everyone. So, for example, I'll give you a simple one, like VAT refunds. It's a major issue for businesses. For example, if you are in export, tea, coffee, flowers, and all these people who are doing exports, there are many Kenyans. When you are exporting anything, goods or services, it's supposed to be exempt from tax. You don't charge VAT. It's that's how you. So, and the inputs you have been charged had VAT. So you claim VAT refund on that input based on certain formulas by the government, by treasury, by income tax, by the law. So what happens is now, government has not been refunding. The two people who suffer in business are people who was waiting for VAT refunds, and people who have got pending bills who are supplied to the government for one reason or the other. So if you look at this finance bill, for instance, they have extended, when you are submitting your claim for a refund, you're supposed, the treasury KRA does an audit. So they have extended the period for that audit, where the audit used to be done in, say, 3 months. Now they've extended it up to 6 months. That means it can take longer for your claims to be verified before it goes for approval for refund. The whole idea is to drag this thing so that the refund process is delayed. Already, as we speak now, for example, this year, it's one of the worst. From March, April, May, we are now in June, no refunds have been paid for VAT.
What are they doing with that money?
It's never happened in the history of this country, where in 3 months in a row, the government has paid 0 VAT refunds, to businesses. And so what does it mean? It means then if I don't have, it affects your cash flow. You're a businessman. You have billions that are outstanding for refunds, or hundreds of millions. So it affects you. So you're going to buy less products, you're going to manufacture less, you're going to produce less, you're going to do less service. So, and these are the same people whom they want to collect more taxes from. So it's a kind of shooting yourselves in the foot. You don't want to pay the people who are generating the income. And it's all about meeting deadlines, you have targets. You've got 4.2 trillion, so everyone says no. If you take out something, nobody wants to. And so I think those are some of the challenges. And apart from all these other ones relating to the moving these products, I think this will affect many industries. So some of those measures, they say, are administrative. Really, all of them have impact, one way or the other, on businesses. And ultimately, when business is affected, then it goes down to the people.
Kero, isn't the government shooting itself on the foot in terms of we want to collect more, we are adding more taxes, but in reality, you look at the refunds that you're talking about that you're not being paid, look at the pending bills that do exist, such that if the business is unable to churn more products to sell more, that means the government is collecting less. So isn't the government just making it the work difficult for itself to collect these taxes and move the economy anyway?
There are two things that the government of Kenya has done which has affected our economy. The reason why every Kenyan tells you the economy is bad, things are very tough. One, because government is one of the largest spenders in any economy. In any economy, is a major player.
Yes.
So that has a significant impact on the economy. When if government is buying things,
yes,
all these things, then you as a producer, you as a seller, you as a trader, there's a lot of money that will be in circulation. Second is, for those who supplied goods and services to government and have not been paid, it has a significant impact on the economy. How many people do you know who have supplied government, they have not been paid, they can't afford even lunch, they can't do anything, because they tell you, look, I'm waiting for the last 2 years, I've not been paid. The poor person. So, and this is affecting that person. They have, in fact, some have been forced to shut down their businesses. So those are two major areas. And the reason why the government is doing this is they tell you, our resources are limited. And we need to tax you guys more. If you want us to spend and pay those bills, we need to tax you more. But the issue is they will never tell you that there's a lot of inefficiency in government.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wastage. There's a lot of mismanagement and misappropriation. When you look at all that, frankly, if I was the president of this country, I would not be taxing anyone. I'll just take a pen and pencil and go through that estimate, and you'll see how much money you can save through wastage in public service. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
And you say something that
we live large. And there's no other. There was a time I went to Sudan. And I was surprised to see, before the war, the minister is in a Toyota Corolla. That's the official car of a minister. You walk now in the morning when they're going to work, CS, there'll be, plus the chase cars, there'll be 3 Prados, and you saw in the media, in the reports of the auditors, that some CS is about 9 cars. And there was a time one had 12 cars. You remember a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So we live. So there's so much wastage in public service that they can save a lot of money. Why would you look for 40 billion? They can raise more than 40 billion from the estimates.
From the estimates,
yes.
they can.
Yeah.
You're told the finance bill is looking for 30 billion. You can raise much more than that if you really desire to go through that document.
So the Auditor General exists to essentially look at the spend on budgets. Control of budget says, fine, from the consolidated fund, you can spend 1, 2, 3 based on what we know is supposed to happen. So she gives the go ahead and spend. After that, the Auditor General comes in to give a report as an accountability holder for government, essentially. So is this the place whereby every year the monies that you have said you're going to spend versus the activities that you've actually engaged in find a place? Do we see shilling to shilling for what this budget, essentially, all this hullabaloo that we're creating around the budget, do we see shilling for shilling that it has been spent on the activities that have been budgeted for?
There's no, we have one of the, our budget, let me put it, let me not go into budget transparency. Let me put it this way.
Okay.
If you are in business and you've done business throughout the year and you've closed your financial year, you would then look at your performance, how it was, how much did we make, how much did we lose, what did we spend on, where did we waste more money, and where can we save? And you look at your performance. In government, it doesn't happen. But the law provides for it. In fact, the law is so powerful that forget about waiting until the end of the year. The office of the controller is real-time audit of government. That's why it's called budget implementation. Every quarter, she submits a budget implementation report. In other words, how did we spend whatever was appropriated
this quarter?
And that goes to Parliament. And the whole idea is so that Parliament can have a real-time discussion on the performance. And in addition to that, Parliament also gets expenditure review reports from Treasury, which is required by law to be submitted every quarter. So there is no waiting for the end of the year, so that you can say, okay, in real time, no, you can't spend this and you can't spend that. Forget about even the powers she has of saying, I can't approve this payment or you can't withdraw this money or whatever. But they give Parliament those reports on how the budget is progressing throughout the year. Then comes the audit at the end of the year afterwards and says, okay, this is how the performance was. This was misplaced, this was misappropriated, this was wasted, and this is the way this one was spent well, and they'll submit their report. So what is the whole idea? The whole idea is so that then Parliament can interrogate these reports and take action, remedial action, so that people must comply with those provisions of that law. And in fact, if you look at the Public Finance Management Act, you'll be shocked. There are over 30, 40 different offences for which penalties have been provided for and you'll be surprised. You'll rarely see any public officer or accounting officer who is being penalized for violation of Public Finance Management Act.
Why?
Because the Treasury, which has got the mandate really, doesn't bother. Because when Parliament submits adopts their whatever recommendations, Parliament will look at what the auditor says, and eventually they will do a recommendation and send it to the custodian of national assets, our custodian for public services. Everything is with the Treasury, and Treasury is supposed to then take some action really. But even forget about the Treasury, even where there is clear theft of money that auditor has flagged, offices like DPP and other offices of government that are supposed to take action, they don't take action. So invariably, anyone in government, when it comes to public finance, if you are involved in any indiscipline or if you are involved in any misappropriation, chances of any action being taken is minimal. And if it happens years later when you have left office. And that's why you find then someone gets taken to court, and then the level of conviction becomes very low and so forth. But the issue is not about conviction. The issue is if an officer has misappropriated money or spent money irregularly, which has not been provided for, Parliament should say, okay, sorry, next you're going to be sanctioned. If it's a CS, they can remove him. And they can also say, okay, we're not going to approve that budget for that ministry until that person is removed or whatever. They have powers, wide powers to deal with, but nobody can deal with that because of, obviously, political expediency. That's the challenge in this country. Everything is about politics. We have politicized every office, so you can't take action. And so this person will continue doing the same thing. Money has been provided for by the controller for you to put up this classroom, but they're going to divert it to something else. And the report is there that person has diverted that money, in that quarter to something else, and no action is taken. And the same person will come again next year. So, and last week she talked about, both the auditor and the controller talked about people spending money that have not been budgeted for.
Right.
A very, very common thing now. But, the law is very clear. That person should have been penalized immediately. But nobody takes action. No government office that is responsible takes action. But if you steal a chicken, you'll be dealt with.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And you see, you talk about something that has also been captured in this document, because if you go on part 21 on expenditure reforms, the document says there is need for rationalization and reduction of non-essential expenditure. The government itself agrees that there is wastage by its own staff on how they spend public funds. And here is now the question of the judicial system, the justice system not doing anything, those in charge, Parliament itself in terms of oversight not doing its job. So at the end of the day, you look at a budget that is at deficit, but even the little that we collect is being misused and no one really cares. So as Kenyans now participate and pour into their views in this budget making process, how do they ensure that this is actually dealt with? Because the bodies that are meant to do it, it's politics being played.
See, most of our budget speeches or budget statements or policy statements that come from Treasury are cut and paste. They're the same ones that are there for the last 20, 30 years. I mean, if you read any budget, go and look for the 2 or 3 budget of Kibaki.
Same
to
thing.
Use the same word,
thing.
rationalization of public expenditure. We're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Those lofty words are always there in the budget. But there's one office that, everything is about leadership, let me tell you. And I keep saying, whenever I talk about this thing, this is all about governance. So what about good governance? So it's all about the leadership. If the president, because everyone here is appointed by a president.
Yes.
That's why the Treasury CS cannot fire the accounting officer of agriculture if he brings in that fertilizer which has sand inside or whatever.
Yes.
He can't, because this guy is also appointed by the same person who appointed him. But if the president gives a commitment that in my administration I will not allow A, B, C, D, and he lives to that, these things will stop.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But where there is no penalty, then it will not stop. It will be the same. And that's the challenge we have in this country. It's all really about the leadership. It's all about governance.
I want to tie this a little bit into what we heard the president say yesterday. I actually tweeted about this as well. He said that for the first time, Kenya has reserves of $10 billion, $10 billion US, and congratulated Treasury for actually being able to achieve this milestone, and said, we've been, the thing you're saying now, we've been crunching the numbers, we've been tightening the screws here and there, and that's how we've been able to put this money aside. A reserve of $10 billion is crazy, isn't it, Bilo? Is it possible to have reserves of this amount of money whereby, number one, there's such high debt, number two, there's so many things that are undone, that for which this budget that we're looking at now is actually supposed to have taken care of in years gone by? Would this be an artificial situation, or how would that work with all these conversations that we're currently having? You laugh.
2-3 years ago, when this administration came in, the issues we were discussing those days was the forex. The exchange rate was crazy. It had gone to almost 168, because remember, and then there was a shortage. We couldn't find dollars. Businesses were complaining. Some of those macroeconomic issues that we were complaining about at the time, today they don't feature so much because they have been dealt with. I think, to give them credit, they did deal with some of those things. They did stabilize the currency down. All those things like the fuel prices, and there were things that were significant at the time, and they've been dealt with. We give them credit. But you see, the forex reserves is an essential thing for the purpose of what you're saying. Basically, is in any country, you need to have a certain amount of foreign currency to enable your businessmen to be able to import what they want to import. So we call it import cover. You need to have, like in this country, we always used to say we must have at least 3 months or 4 months import cover. And where you don't have those reserves, then you get into a situation where there's a crisis of the currency, and then there's shortage in supply of currency, and then the rate goes up. And you remember what happened in 2021, 22 when that crisis. So I think what then they have done was using the monetary policy, the central bank. They were able to stabilize the forex. What they do is they play around with on the interest rates, on through the monetary policy, so that the more, if it becomes very expensive for you to borrow, then you will not borrow. If it becomes less expensive, so that what you are going to do is you reduce the amount of shilling in the market by making it very expensive for people to borrow. So they've been raising the interest rates and so forth. So it makes it more, that way indirectly, then what you're doing is you're making the dollars to be more available. That's basically what they did, using that monetary policy. But at the same time, the impact of it is now the interest rates becomes more high. And so these are the same measures that are used for fighting inflation by governments. So yes, they have very good forex reserves, and that's why the shilling has stabilized, even with all the crises of Trump and so forth. But that does not necessarily it's good for businesses,
Yes.
because now we don't have that crisis of the dollar, and we don't have the exchange going crazy. That's good for the businesses, and ultimately also for the people who will benefit, all of us in the country. But you see, for the ordinary Kenyan, is they don't see the benefit of all those things which you announce. It's the businessmen who would understand. Yes, that's very helpful, and we are, at least then in the short term, the long term, we can say our currency is going to remain. I can plan.
Yes,
using the today's rate of 130. That look, next year I can say maybe by December even 130. I can use that rate. So it's good for businesses. But for ordinary person, I think they are looking at
bread and butter issues.
Yes, and those the cost for you to get that, you have raised cost of finance for businesses, and so you have made things expensive. Don't forget.
That's how it has come about. Look, it's important for us to have these conversations, learning one or two things every day, and I think that's what you've been able to do for us today. Bill Okaro, economic analyst, has been here with us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. More about this, of course, in the near future. It continues. We still have to talk about it. It's important that we do. Good morning at 9:01.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Public Service CS Geoffrey Ruku says by 2027 the number of National Youth Service being trained will increase up to 100,000. Now speaking on SpiceFM, Ruku said this will be made possible by commercialization, where youth serving under NYS will receive dues for their services.
We have 21 campuses of National Youth Service. How can we make these 21 campuses of National Youth Service more productive? How can we ensure that they are accommodating as many young people in the Republic of Kenya as possible? So one of the strategies which the government has employed is to ensure, moving forward, we are going to start commercialization. Because one of the things which has hindered the expansion of the National Youth Service is funding, because funding has been coming from the exchequer. So the question is, can we be able to use the skills which National Youth Service instills to young people? We have seen National Youth Service offering security in many of government facilities. Can we extend this? Can we be able to get payment out of this?
Ruku added that to deal with corruption cases that may arise in the process of commercialization, individuals will be assigned to deal with mismanagement.
There will be employment of professionals at National Youth Enterprises. Already the organizational structure is ready. The qualification of those people who should fill those positions in the organizational structure, the skills required are there. But myself as a minister, we have a PS, we have a Commandant General who will be on top of everything in terms of ensuring the management of that institution, enterprise is well taken care of. Because we can't allow a situation where mismanagement of resources is happening.
And moving on is that 6 people accused of being behind the fatal shooting of a police officer on Sunday night in the freehold area of Nakuru town will be detained for the next 30 days to enable the investigation officer to carry out the needed investigations. Now, the officer was shot dead during a patrol after being ambushed alongside his 2 colleagues who were left injured. Principal Magistrate Vincent Adet said that the reasons advanced by the investigation officer to hold the suspects are compelling and would grant the orders to ensure that the officers have time to undertake all the investigations, including ballistic examinations, parade identification, mental assessment, as well as statements from the witnesses. Now, for the first time ever, Kenya has managed to accumulate reserves of 10.3 billion billion dollars. President William Ruto says that the reserves indicate the continued growth of the national economy.
For the first time ever in the Republic of Kenya, we have reserves of $10.3 billion. It doesn't come easy. It again, for the first time for over a year, our exchange rate is stable. and our inflation has been managed.
That's the Newswire. I'm Ndu Okoh.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Waliletea fujo Moi mpaka wakapata cooperation. Wakakuja wakasumbua Kibaki mpaka wakachukua nusu mkate. Wamekuja wakazungusha Uhuru hapo mpaka wakaenda na handshake, program yetu ikapotea, BBI ikaendelea, tukazama, tukaingia kwa madeni. Sasa mimi nimewaambia, hii serikali hii, mimi nawaambia hii serikali ni ya mahasla. Hakuna nusu mkate, hakuna handshake, hakuna hiyo borojo.
Jana nimeona wale wazee tulishinda. Ati hiyo mzee akisema ati he'll not be coerced or intimidated to joining our government. Wewe mzee sikia. We have no business within our government. Hatuna haja na hatugojei wewe. We are not looking for you and we have no time. Stop saying that people can force you to come to this government. Forget about being forced or coerced. We are not interested because sisi tuko na kazi ya kufanya.
Kama kuna mtu ako na namba ya William Ruto, arekodi hii video mtumie. Maisha yangu tangu nizaliwe sijawahi kuona mtu muongo, mfisadi, baradhuli, dhabdhabina kama William Samoei Ruto.
Mimi Hassan Joho nikitaka kuongea, mimi I don't even dream of engaging with them. Ati huyu akitaka aje aongee sio na mimi niongee na Ruto nini? Mimi nikamtafute atanipa nini? Wilbaro. I wonder. Nilipeleka Wilbaro mimi la kimtaani la kucheza nalo zamani.
We have a choice to reject over 60% of these names or give President Ruto his skunk. Apart from a few individuals who are not even more than 8, the rest are incompetent, unqualified, have integrity issues, are people who cannot deliver this country from where it is to the next level that we want the country to move in.
A few moments later.
Now forwarded the name of John Mbadi Ngongo to the Ministry of National Treasury and Economic Planning. The Honorable Hassan Ali Joho, Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs.
Nguruwe ujiganga na mafuta yako.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can't run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
9 minutes after 9 o'clock. Well, we didn't quite make 7 after 9, but here we are anyway, 2 minutes after the fact. And this is the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, for this Wednesday, getting over the hump of the week and into the end of it. And as we round out the conversations this hour, we will be talking with the Secretary General of the KMPDU, that's Dr. Davji Atela, and he'll be with us shortly. We'll look into those conversations with him. And even as we do, Dennis and Ndu with you this morning. The square root of Dennis is?
Dennis squared.
Okay, thanks. So a number of things happen, and when we talk about them, we actually put them out. They're things that shouldn't and cannot be hidden. And we know that whether you want to look at it religiously or otherwise, people do perish for lack of knowledge. So we share the information, we have the conversations, we put them front and center as they should. All right. There are staff wrangles, and they're stalling the SHA recruitment process. One would imagine that one Dr. Luga has his knickers in a twist over this. Wrangles continue to disrupt the transition and recruitment process of the newly established Social Health Authority, with reports indicating growing discontent among some staff. Now, the Public Service Commission is reported to have issued letters to some staff members who did not apply to transition to SHA or who opted for redeployment to other public service institutions. This development comes even as senators demanded that the SHA should absorb all the defunct National Health Hospital and Insurance Fund employees. Senators are also calling for a thorough vetting of staff to weed out unscrupulous employees who approved numerous fictitious claims, causing the loss of millions of taxpayer shillings. Senate Majority Leader Aaron Chariot told the House that 95 to 99% of former NHIF staff were hardworking Kenyans who deserve the country well and deserve another chance. So the thought was that, well, you have a new authority, NHIF is defunct, but they said these are the people who are holding the system together. So if you're moving into a new authority, why are you not able to then just transition people from point A to point B? But there seems to be some politics at play here. A recent court ruling ordered all positions to be re-advertised publicly, effectively blocking the exclusive hiring of former NHIF employees. So essentially they had to reapply if they were going to transition. 2 weeks ago, the PSC extended temporary contracts for former NHIF employees deployed to SHA. Several positions have already been advertised internally, with recruitment restricted to former NHIF staff. 1,730 is the number of employees who were temporarily deployed to SHA in October 2024 for 6 months. Does it make sense to just take the same people who are working in the system and move them over? Or would you need to get fresh blood, as it were, to start in a new authority? Because we're changing everything. That's the question at hand. Why would that be a problem?
Look at it from the perspective that why were we really moving from NHIF to SHA? Simply because there are reports that NHIF was not working as expected, right? The reason why we came up with a new system called SHA, which would need then more training and whatnot. So perhaps we needed new blood to go in with the new thing, one would argue.
You know, the other question is, why did SHA move, or rather deviate from the original approved hiring by the PSC? Some of these institutions, what happens is there's just power play from the top. And whenever there's power play, there's someone who is benefiting because you keep making these changes, shifts. Obviously, I mean, we're not foreigners in our own country. We know. Kuna kitu mahali. Kuna kakitu mahali. That is always what will happen. But you know, just the approval without the green light is an issue in itself. Is an issue in itself. But you look at, you know, it's so difficult to follow through the whole drama around SHA. Sure. You know, at one point you're discussing payments. You're discussing the systems working. Then you're discussing, okay, who is involved in the recruitment process? Who are the people being hired? It's just crazy.
I mean, one would imagine that as the SHA was being put in place, the entire ecosystem and structure around SHA would have been put in place, including those that are considered critical in running SHA. So even if we needed people to be absorbed from NHIF, there ought to have been a process, a regulation, a guideline on how they would be absorbed inside SHA to make it easy and smooth. That we're talking about these after the fact, there is a problem.
You know, this is interesting. So, a total of 1,730 were temporarily deployed.
Yes.
The understanding was, you know how you go to look for a job, or you are called for a job, there is a contract that is involved. So you're given terms. So in this case, you're told, okay, your contract would only last 6 months. So that's the understanding. So initially, these same people were to undergo that suitability test and whatnot. With those now who qualify, transitioning to permanent roles within the authority. Now, those who do not qualify, first of all, that first layer, there are those who qualify and there are those who will not qualify. The politics around who qualifies. Of course, some of these things in Akonga ni kujuana. Then those who do not qualify for permanent positions at SHA are to be sent to the Public Service Commission for redeployment.
To where?
So this is the issue of, fine, hautapata hiyo kazi, but we are sending you to this place for redeployment. Okay, so the redeployment, then some employees are expected to be offered early retirement and all this. And so what is happening actually currently in government with all these things going on? So a lot of departments, there's this freeze on getting new people on board, of course. So what is happening? You still need to promote people within you know, the different government departments, within different line ministries. So you need to promote, but then there are people who need to go for retirement. Okay, now they can't go for retirement and you can't bring these people up for promotion, so they are stuck there. So if you hire, you are stacking up numbers. Then the confusion is when it comes to promoting, who then do you promote? Because this one has now better papers. After staying in the same position for 10 years. They need to move up, but they can't move up. And those who are moving up, ni kujuana. It's who you know.
But would we see a difference? The number of people... do we see a difference in the work, essentially, that is being asked in the authority and what was happening at the fund? It's more or less the same work. You're not asking for new skill sets to then be employed when you bring in these new individuals. The thing is that it would appear as though there was a taint or a stain on the image of folks who worked under NHIF, and what you're trying to do by moving them away or asking for a new recruitment is to sanitize the employee image, because now you're moving into something new. But then it doesn't make a difference if you're still saying some of these people we will still move, because where's a better pool to then harvest from than the people who did the work in the old system for the last 50 years? Where's a better place to get experience from? So do we see the hand of some kind of political gimmicks being played here, whereby you're going to say, well, we're going to hold up on all of this and we're going to start looking for people from afresh? Remember that this is a system where you're moving the country sick, you're moving the country in terms of people who are looking for health services every day, every minute. There's somebody who's going into hospital. Do you have the time to play about and say, well, we're not going to use you? And that's what's causing these wrangles now. That will then ask yourself the question, so who's going to handle this while we decide what is happening? Why can't we get our ducks in a row and say, you know what, you have a pool of experience here, just make sure you're moving the right people to get this thing done? Because you're still keeping them in one pool or another. And let's just why can't we just get it done and get it right every time?
And one of the things that the employees were talking about is the biggest concern around salaries and job grades at NHIF. They were different, at the time, including the salary scales. So when you talk about these transitions, what I know about these transitions, and when you're trying to create new space and getting rid of what you refer to as the old, is you create then an enabling environment to scatter, to bring in, to do whatever it is that you want. It's, for me, always it's like a Game of Thrones
or something. Well, perhaps Dr. Davji Atela will then be able to, share some insight into all of this, because it's not just about taking a stethoscope to someone's chest, but it's looking at the ecosystem within which health operates. And that's the conversation that we have this morning. Dr. Atela, good morning. Karibu sana.
Good morning. How are you?
I am fine. We were expecting you at 9 o'clock.
The traffic.
Oh, there's traffic.
Yes.
It was interesting because I did a little video for folks. It goes on digital, and they asked, what is one of the reasons that Kenyans always give for being late? And I said, well, that's got to be the thing. It's the traffic.
If you look at our roads compared to roads somewhere else, they have 6 lanes.
There is the stab for infrastructure to be done better in the country. You've heard it from Dr. Atella. He's saying, you know what, fix the roads so that we can be early. Anyway, good to have you here, and it's good to see you. Let's welcome you properly before we get into the conversation. There's a lot to talk about. Dennis is going to share today's proverb, but he'll tell you where it's from, and then we can get you to open up a little bit about your interpretation. Right?
Yeah, okay. So Dr. good thing is when you talk about roads, we've been told that NYS will soon be getting into that, so we hope they'll fix it, right?
Yes.
But now let's go down South Africa. You've been to Eswatini before? Swaziland?
No, I've been to
South Africa.
Yes.
Oh, so Eswatini is just
in South Africa.
In South Africa, so you've been there, yeah? Yes. But now, what's one of the greatest things that stand out for you when you hear about Eswatini?
The kingship and the annual marriage.
And the annual marriage ceremony, right? So today, our proverb comes from there, right? And it goes like this. A man shows his character by what he laughs at. A man shows his character by what he laughs at. What do you make of that?
That a man shows his character by what he laughs at.
Yes.
It means that what he laughs at is what actually brighten the heart or the soul. So it means it does what impacts him. Yeah, so it demonstrates what if you are a pessimist person, then the things that are devastating to people is what will make you happy, like we've seen with dictators. But if you are like a priestly person who wants to save the people, if you are a trade unionist, then the justice and success of people is what will make you happy. So then that's what it means.
Indeed. If we jump right into it, and I think that just forms a good basis. Thanks for that interpretation. We're looking into UHC, who's really holding Kenya's healthcare system in their hands. U.S. Secretary General of the KMPDU. I mean, we've had a number of conversations about what's really ailing the health sector. For the last 6, now going to 7 weeks, UHC employees have down their tools, and because of that, many people have then been denied access to healthcare at medical facilities across the country because of this. And so if the employees who have been brought on board essentially to activate universal health coverage are not at work, we start to ask the questions about if this is really working. And if people then go to hospital and the testimony, I mean, you've been in the middle of it, Dr. In the middle of it, we hear that, some people cannot get treated. Some go get treated. Some it's paid for. Can we say that the system as a whole is working if we have employees on strike, not being paid, doctors still having an issue here and there, medical, clinical officers on strike, nurses about to join the thing? I mean, we're still there. We really haven't moved the needle in terms of the development of this. Why are we still here, Doc?
If you look at the issues, I would say in blanketly, it revolves around funding. It's all about money. That is money following up all this ideology, all our plan for universal health care. But if you come down to the UHC staff that are currently on strike, we need to go down and check under what circumstances did the national government decide to capacity build county governments by employing the 8,500 UHC? Because it is very clear to us that we cannot talk about universal health care without a full focus on human resource. And not just a human resource, but a human resource that is motivated and is employed in the right time, right terms. Because this staff, 8,500 as has been said, they have contracts, they were interviewed with different counties. But then we have the payroll systems coming up with the national government. We saw today, around 14th of last month, that the ministry wrote to the COG, can we verify the existence of this stuff? The numbers that were not tallying, it means that there has been some ineffective engagement between the Council of Governors and the ministry. And this whole problem is not new. It's a problem that started well back in 2019. It's a 6-year problem that we are having today, that has been that the government actually violated the labor laws, because under our labor law 2007 and the ILO Convention 100, there is no way 2 employees doing the same job can be paid different wages. You have to be paid the same wages and you be employed the same terms. That's what the law provides. So ideally, I look at a situation whereby we need to resolve that problem that occurred in 2019 now.
which two employees would be working the same job but being paid two different salaries?
We have the UHC nurses and the UHC staff. We have those who are employed under permanent and pensionable terms. For example, you'll find that the UHC nurses are earning, for example, 50,000, while those nurses that were employed on the PNP are earning 100,000, but they are working in the same station. There's a misnomer that occurred in 2019 that ought to be corrected right now. And therefore, it has transcended, I would say, 4 ministers, because we had Kagwe at that particular time, then you've had Nakumicha, then you've had Deborah over the same issue. I see the new CS over the same matter now, but I found him to be more progressive over this issue than the previous ministers, because none of them has come up and said, this is a problem that needs to be sorted out, that we have to rectify the contracts, we have to put them under the right terminologies, just like other workers in the counties. And therefore, but then there's a pushback. We see counties say, no, we will not accept these employees unless these terms are reviewed. Yet these are people who are working in those particular counties. Because without the UHC staff, without the healthcare workers, we cannot have services in the hospitals. So we need to have a robust conversations, a robust agreement that is satisfactory to the UHC staff, satisfactory to the Ministry of Health that is paying them, and satisfactory to the counties, ideally, rather than the, I would say, the conundrum of reactions from both parties. Because when the minister say we want to change them to these terms, the county say no, we can't receive them. Then also they say we can't allow, because whatever which was said on 14th was a glaring issue that it has to be investigated. If you say that ministry is paying 8,700, county say no, we have 5,700, then there's a problem. Where is the money for the other 3,000 going? And if that money is well utilized, then how we will not even be talking about the contract so far. We will have that money can actually sort out the 5,500. So those are the questions I think need to be taken into place. But ideally, fundamentally, there is no worker who need to be discriminated, who need to be paid less than the others, who need to be put on inferior terms, and therefore the UHC staff deserve this dignity.
What systemic failures do these strikes and all these issues that you're talking about reveal about, county level healthcare management in its entirety?
We have had an issue of governance that has affected, healthcare is not just the infrastructure. We need to have a functional infrastructure, the hospitals and the equipment that actually can run these particular facilities. We need to have the issue of the drugs and the products also supplied. We need to have the human resource that actually now make sure that things are operationalized. But also there's aspect of governance, where governance in healthcare becomes a bit tricky, because we have ministry where we must have a very decisive, resolute cabinet secretary. Then we have 47 county governments that also operate in or rather semi-autonomous capacity, whereby they want to be very autonomous with their responses. So you realize that the agreements are done and are signed and policies are made, but out of 47 counties, maybe only 30 takes into effect these particular issues. Maybe 17 don't want to look into them. So those brings the reactions. Sometimes agreements that they agree, ministry and counties, they don't honor both sides. So that becomes a problem. And that's why we need somebody who, and I was telling this to some of our colleagues, that we may have a very good minister, like now we do, who can make decisions on things. But then every decision that is made has to be agreed by 47 county governors. So if only 5 agrees, then it means the 43 will not agree to the problem. Even us as a union, we had a national strike where we have a return to work agreement that was signed by Council of Governors together with the Ministry of Health. I can tell you that the things that we signed with the Ministry of Health have been implemented. But now we have strikes in different counties. We have almost 6 strikes. And we've been having strikes every month.
Over the same
issues. Even now we still have a strike in Kiambu County. We had a strike last week in Kakamega. We're planning a strike over in Lamu, in Nakuru, in Laikipia. Over the same things. Why? Because these people are not prioritizing these matters as it should be. And that is...
You've said the issue of, the CS, you have 47 counties or governors. Is it a policy disagreement? Is it a question of control? Is it a question of funding? What exactly is it? Why do you have few counties saying, okay, we are going this line? Then you have other counties, majority, who will disagree. Why this push and pull?
It is a subjective response to issues that has been taking place. For example, let me give you a practical example of statutory deductions. We have Social Aid Authority that is being deducted from every employee, including in the counties. Then we realize that this money is not remitted to social aid authority by 9th of every month, then if you are a civil servant